Hey everyone, welcome back to the Castaway Consultants, where we teach future Survivor players how to play the game by criticizing past players because the rewind is back, baby! We are talking about the pre-merge of Season 33, Millennials versus Gen X, which may or may not be my favorite season of Survivor. I'm one of your three fantastic co-hosts. All three of us are Millennials. Three Millennial co-hosts today, so maybe a little biased. But I'm one of them, Ryan Stacy, and I'm joined today by two other Millennials, Josh Wessler and Derek Kubicek. In person. Whoa. We're all together today. Josh made the long trek up to North Dakota, and here we are. Guys, how you doing?
It's a special occasion. One, it's Millennials versus Gen X. Two, Josh is here. Three, we all survived the tornadoes last night.
We had a big tornado near here last night.
Well, luckily, we're all here, and we have a good season to talk to you about today, or at least a good pre-merge, right? Because we're only going to talk about pre-merge.
Yep, pre-merge only. No spoilers for the post-merge, but we will be spoiling the entire pre-merge today.
And because there have been comments about it, we will be talking about whether or not certain players play again if and when they get voted out. I don't really count that as much of a spoiler because it's a season setup thing, but if that's something that you don't want to know, probably not the podcast for you.
Yep. Also wanted to know, just in case, I will try and edit out best I can. It is super hot and super humid up here today. Crazy garbage BS weather. So we have a fan going. So hopefully I can edit it out completely. If you do hear the sound of a fan that you wouldn't hear, that's why. Just wanted to point that out because we cannot podcast in a sauna.
Sauna. Sauna.
I say sauna, but I wanted to make fun of our friend Connor and our friend Sarah. That's why I said sauna.
I think I do that too.
Yep.
I say sauna ironically, but now it's become normal.
Oh, no. So, there's a lot of Survivor out there, right, guys? We're coming up on Season 49 here. That is a lot of Survivor if you're just getting into it. So, if you don't want to watch it all, which you should, but if you don't want to, we are here to tell you what is must-watch Survivor. So, with Millennials versus Gen X, we finished the pre-merge and only the pre-merge. Guys, is this must-watch Survivor?
Yeah, that's easy. This is one of the easiest pre-merges for me to say yes to.
Yeah, out of just enjoyment, I would say. Is there going to be anything that's brand new gameplay-wise here? I actually don't think so.
I don't think so either.
But there's a lot going on here still.
Yeah, this is a super fun pre-merge. This is an incredible cast. We were talking about it the other day. Derek said 17 to 18 are straight bangers, and there's like two kind of duds, which is really good for the Survivor cast. You're always going to get one or two, but everyone is really bringing it for the most part.
And when I was saying that, I was saying, I think there are maybe one dud on the cast, maybe one pretty neutral, but everybody else is actively additive to the season. They bring something to the table that none of the other 15, 16 do.
And I got to say, the boot order is incredible.
This is a pretty elite boot order. There is someone we'll get into that I think could have made it further, and it would have made for some fun. But the friend group story we got out of it was almost worth the boot. So I adore Millennials versus Gen X. And to Josh's point, while we don't learn anything new within the context of 33 seasons in this pre-merge, this is one of those seasons, depending on the person, if they want to jump around, I might tell them to watch this season first because you get a little bit of everything. The only thing I'd watch out for is not every season is this amazing.
This is kind of like Kageyan, where if you watch this one first, you're setting the bar high.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is a cast of great players who came to play, but they don't completely check the emotional side of the door. These are emotionally driven people at times. So they're interesting. They have interesting backstories. And like I said, the boot order is amazing. If I got to pick, 7 people go home in the pre-merge. If I got to pick, 6 out of these 7 would be the ones I would pick. There's only one swap I would make. But even, that person, the top 14 people is the best 14 people. And it's great.
And actually, I will make a correction because I did see that there's, nothing new here. Technically, we do have a new advantage.
We do have a new advantage. It doesn't really come into play, except like once. We'll talk about it. It's an advantage I actually like, and we only do it for a little bit, and then we get away from it. I think they did it like 3 times, and they don't do it again because I don't think they love the results. But I was fine with it. I like this twist. So, must-watch Survivor from all 3 of us. Definitely check this one out. And spoiler alert, the post-merge is also amazing. So just watch the whole damn season.
Yeah, it might be the dumbest theme name as we move through the 30s. So, like, on the surface, it's like, don't judge a book by its cover on this one.
I was skeptical coming into this, too.
Bring it back. Millennials versus Gen Z.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm
Oh
down.
yeah. I think you need to give it just a few more years.
Yeah. Well, because they started at 18 here,
Yeah.
so once the cap or whatever was at 18 for the millennials, we need to get to that point for Gen Z, which I think we might be close to.
We're close.
Survivor 51, Millennials versus Gen Z. Let's do it.
I'm all about it. Jeff, big fan of the podcast. Do it.
So yeah, and the funny thing is, this isn't exactly a new theme. We kind of already did this in Nicaragua.
Well, we kind of did it in Nicaragua, but these same exact themes came up in Africa.
Yep.
And they came up in Australia as well.
Panama too.
I was going to say, we had the young and old tribes with men and women.
It only lasted one episode, but yeah, we did it in Panama.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but I think even Dr. Sean in season 1 of Survivor was like, well, those baby boomers like BB, they've got like that work ethic. We're trying to carve our own path out here as Gen Xers. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, if you want a good laugh, watch
Control V.
Watch Borneo and Africa, and then watch Millennials versus Gen X. So it really is. It's a bunch of young people who still have that glimmer of hope in their eyes.
That's really all
it's a bunch of old cynical bums.
Because even now, you could just copy and paste with Millennials and Gen Z.
Yep.
It's just maybe it's not as true or as stereotypical as a boomer or Gen X. But
Give it a few more years, maybe though.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're not far away.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how optimistic the younger generation is. That might be going away.
The
We're all cynical.
glimmer of hope and the twinkle in your eye is it completely gone yet, Ryan?
Yes, mine's gone. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
Mine is gone.
Unfortunately, Gen Z might be the first generation to be bred without a glimmer of hope.
Yeah, it's just pure cynicism.
Yeah.
So, spoiler alert. Go watch this. 3, 2, 1. Get out of here.
Goodbye.
We're gonna go over the cast here. And Josh, Derek, and I like to play a game every season with newbies and see how many of the cast members they can guess and remember. How many can they get right? Derek got 13 out of 20, and Josh got 11 out of 20.
Not bad. And honestly, I probably should have gotten a couple of more, but that happens every season.
Yeah, you say that every time.
Yep.
Literally every time.
But I'm going to make sure to say it every time.
All right, so let's start on the Gen X tribe, which is also called Takali, until we get to the tribe, so we'll just call it Gen X Millennials, just for simplicity's sake. But on the Gen X tribe, we have Brett LaBelle, a police sergeant from Dedham, Massachusetts.
Funeral director.
Yeah, he's going to pretend to be a funeral director. What's funny is I believe he was also a consultant on that recent Eli Roth movie, Thanksgiving, because it's a Boston area police movie, and I'm pretty sure he helped work on that movie.
I
as a
like
consultant. It was either him or someone else named Brett LaBelle who was on the Boston police force.
Could be anyone.
It could be anyone.
Could be anyone.
Love Brett. He's really, really funny. Kind of like not an insane Tony, but like just as likable as Tony, I would say. Very kind of similar in that capacity. CC Taylor, insurance adjuster from Granada Hills, California. One of the duds.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Chris Hammond's a trial lawyer from Moore, Oklahoma. Big dude.
And for me, who tries really, really hard with my audition tapes every year, one of the most epic audition tapes of all time, he picks up a dog turd off the ground and eats it. That was his audition tape.
Wow.
If I was guaranteed a shot on Survivor by eating a dog turd, I would still not do it. Nope.
Oh, God, I would do that.
I would do it.
But I'm not going to do it just for a random audition tape.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
gotta
don't-
be a guarantee.
Yeah, it would have to be a guarantee. The fact that he just did it. So, props, man.
Oklahoma, everybody.
Oklahoma.
David Wright, a television writer from Sherman Oaks, California. At the time, he wrote for Family Guy. I think he is one of the writers on Star Trek Lower Decks these days. So, successful TV writer. Jessica Lewis, an assistant district attorney from Voorheesville, New York, has gone on to be one of the hosts of the Why Blank Lost podcast with David Bloomberg. So, big Jessica fan right here. I love that podcast.
I think we're also friends on Pokemon Go.
Are you really?
I think so, yeah.
That's amazing. We've had a little bit of interaction with her on Twitter before, so love Jessica. Ken McNichol, a model from Denver, Colorado.
Yes, but why male models?
Barry Derek Zoolander energy. Lucy Huang, a dietitian from Diamond Bar, California. Paul Wachter, a boat mechanic from Sugarloaf Key, Florida. Rachel Ako, I'm not sure, recruiting director from Los Angeles. And rest in peace, Sunday Berquist, a youth pastor from Otsego, Minnesota, which is very much my neck of the woods, not too far from where I grew up.
And not exactly a fun fact because of the circumstances, but friends of my aunt and uncle.
So Sunday, she passed away a few years back from breast cancer, and she had already survived breast cancer once. She was on the show. Real sweetheart. Rest in peace. Greatly missed. Very Minnesota.
Very Minnesota.
And you know what? I'm proud to have her representing Minnesota on this season.
Honestly, probably out of all of our Minnesota reps, she's probably the best player and probably my favorite.
I think Eva did a pretty good job too, but
Yeah, okay, so yes, but like at the time she didn't live in Minnesota, so that's a gray area.
Eva's from Minnesota, but lives in the East Coast.
Yeah, I technically only count the people who are living in Minnesota at the time of play.
look, I count people who are from Minnesota.
Wasn't Franny?
Yep, Franny's another one who's originally
Franny
from
Moran.
Minnesota, lived in
I think Franny's a better player than
Massachusetts.
Sunday.
Yeah, she was living in Massachusetts at the time.
Oh,
I'm not counting Franny.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, if you wanted to count everybody who's from Minnesota, I don't know everybody. So they don't always put where they're originally from in their Survivor Wiki profiles. They only put where they live at the time. So that's the only reason I know that. I don't know where everybody was originally from.
Yeah, which I like that they would do that. And not, hey, this person was randomly just born in Minnesota. What's this, Chris Pratt
Or Vince Vaughn. On the Millennials tribe, which is also known as Vanua, we have Adam Klein, a homeless shelter manager from San Francisco. Figgy Figueroa, I think her real name is Jessica, but she goes by Figgy, a bartender from Nashville.
And she gives me serious Catherine Hahn vibes.
Yeah, I see that. Agatha all along, Figgy all along.
Yep.
Totally. Hannah Shapiro, a barista from West Hollywood. Jay Starrett, a real estate agent from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Also known from The Challenge.
Yeah, very prolific challenge competitor after this show. He's probably more well-known for the challenge these days. Apparently, he's just the biggest douche on the challenge, and he's not on Survivor. He's really likable on Survivor.
I think he's just playing a character. He seems like a nice guy.
Mari Takahashi, a professional gamer from Los Angeles. Michaela Bradshaw, a vacation club saleswoman from Fort Worth, Texas. Michelle Schubert, a missionary recruiter from Yakima, Washington. Taylor Stalker, a snowboard instructor from Post Falls, Idaho.
If you French fry when you're supposed to pizza, you're gonna have a bad time. Serious.
Yep.
No, like occupation matches the person perfectly.
Yep, that guy is Taylor.
In Survivor history, there's probably been only 3 or 4 people where, oh my gosh, that's on the nose.
Yep.
And Taylor is one of them.
Will Wall, a high school student from Long Valley, New Jersey, played at 18, literally left high school to play Survivor. Wow.
Bold choice.
And you know what? He did pretty well.
He did pretty well.
You know, for an 18-year-old, he does pretty well on Survivor in terms of like even just social maturity. It's impressive for
You
an
know what they
18-year-old.
say, where there's a will, there's a wall.
Stupid. And finally, an asset manager from Brooklyn, New York, Zeke Smith.
Our elder statesman in the Millennial tribe.
Second oldest. Mari's 31, Zeke is 28.
He calls himself an old soul.
Yeah,
he calls himself the old man of the tribe.
So that is our motley group of 20 who I adore.
Yes.
Should we jump into these episodes?
It's about time.
Let's do it.
All right, episode 1 made the best generation win. Guys, welcome to Fiji. We're never leaving.
We're never leaving. I was going to make a joke. If the tribe names sound Fijian, it's because, hey, we're back in Fiji.
For the first time since season 14.
Yep.
And we have never left.
And we've never left.
What year is this?
This was fall of 2016.
All right.
There's a joke here. You come to Fiji for the Survivor and you stay because you sold your soul for more Survivor.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, as long as you get more Survivor.
Yeah. So the one flaw, I would say, of this season, if you want to call it a flaw, and it doesn't bother me much, but I can see why people would find it annoying, is the references to the generational tropes are a lot. There's a lot of like, well, millennials do this, and Gen X does this, and it's just like, okay, we get it.
Millennials have a disdain for tradition and they're trying to carve their own path. I'm like, a 20-year-old?
What?
You're just
Yeah, Gen X definitely didn't do that when they were 20.
You're just
What?
20. Young people rebel. Old people are cynical. Like, this is not breaking news.
And we're gonna get this throughout the themes
Yep.
here in the 30s.
Yep.
But then you're also gonna get the second layer of, oh, there's that one or two people who are technically fall into this category, but aren't anything like the rest of their tribe mates because, you know, not everyone fits into the same box.
Exactly. So,
Whatever.
it's not for everybody.
It's not for everybody. These were my first years watching Survivor. I have nostalgia for it, and I kind of wish they would bring back a theme season like this.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, I'm ready.
And then
50s, load them up with themes.
And then ham fist these stupid stereotypes in, bring back some overt corporate shilling.
Do another heroes, healers, hustlers situation. That dumb crap. Guys, I cannot wait to get to that season because I have a fun game we're going to do and a bonus episode before we start that one.
So I love this stuff. If you hate it, don't worry. You'll get over it quickly.
The one rebuttal I want to make to one of them is the participation trophy trope gets brought up. Millennials always got participation trophies. Who the hell do you think gave them out?
Yeah.
It was a bunch of upset parents from Gen X who were upset that their little Timmy or Tanya was not getting a trophy. So this is Gen X's fault, not ours.
And the other part is nobody gave us a participation trophy. We had to pay for them.
Yep.
Do you know what the cost of tuition is?
We earn those participation trophies,
We earned
Dan.
them. We earned them fair and square.
So yeah, I always hated that trope. Like, we were victimized here. This is not our fault. But okay, everyone's gonna land on a beach. And we're gonna get an opening challenge where you gather supplies, kind of marooning-esque, even though we're already marooned. But there are 2 choices to make in the chaos. Each tribe has options. They can choose between a hammer or pots and utensils. What do you guys think? What's the right choice here?
I'd go with pots and utensils.
Yeah.
I think so too, and the castaways agreed with us. Both tribes picked that. The other one is chickens or fishing gear. The millennials are going to pick the chickens. Gen X picks the fishing gear. What do you guys think?
If you have someone who's confident that they can fish, you want the fishing gear. If you don't have anybody who can fish, take the chickens.
I'm going to say always take the chickens unless you are on a season maybe like Rupert.
Well, I think you always take the fishing gear.
Because there's no guarantee. The chickens are a sure thing.
The chickens are a sure thing for one meal.
You can probably get 3 meals out of it. Maybe eggs too.
Three meals?
3 chickens?
Okay, well, yes, if you have 3 chickens, I guess. I just didn't really pay attention to how many chickens
I think they got a
there
rooster
were.
and 2 hens.
But either way, like, you can go fishing and, like, actually find stuff. Now, like, with the one thing being this is their first time in Fiji, so you don't really know how, like, fishable this area is. But, like, we see someone later on who's going to catch, like, an octopus. Like, that's going to be a decent amount of food. So, and I just think that, you have a lot higher chance of frequently having some sort of food. Like, you get a lot of food with the chicken, but it's one meal.
Somebody, for me, if I'm on the Millennials tribe, let's say, and the choice is chickens or fishing gear, I cannot spearfish. So I'm not going to speak up and say we need the fishing gear. I'm going to be in Camp Chicken. But if there's a guy giving off some major Aussie, Rupert, Richard Hatch vibes, and he speaks up or she speaks up and says, I can spearfish, take the fishing gear. I don't want the chickens. I trust you.
I want the sure thing to go through the strength of the early days to get through some of those early challenges, maybe get an advantage just from strength alone, and then we can all starve later on together.
That's fair.
If they can fish, you get to eat. If they can't fish, easy first boot for being a liar.
True, but chickens. Chickens is the right answer.
But also, if your decision is going to be made because, we think that we'll have, the chickens, but also they're going to lay eggs. You don't know that.
You don't know that.
You don't know
but
that. Don't have that be the reason why.
The chickens are a sure thing. Fishing is not.
Yeah.
And there's some locations where the fishing has been horrible. I think Nicaragua had terrible fishing. So there's no guarantee with the fishing gear. Well, during this chaos, Jessica is going to spot an envelope on the ground. She doesn't find it by chance. She sees it, runs over and grabs it. It is a new advantage called the Legacy Advantage. How this works is if you have the Legacy Advantage at the final 6, it basically works as a hidden immunity that you can play, and all votes against you will not count. If you get voted out, you have to pass it on to somebody else. Give it to somebody else, whoever you want. So, yep, that's the Legacy Advantage. It's kind of a minor advantage. I don't mind it, though. It's interesting.
Yeah, and we're notably not told what the advantage is. That comes later on. I would maybe have liked to know what the advantage is ahead of time if I'm just like the person who finds it, just because it's like, okay, like this might impact who I share this information with. If anyone, am I going to try to build an alliance based off of this advantage, or is me sharing the information about this advantage going to put a target on my back?
The answer is it will put a target on your back. If you get the Legacy Advantage, tell no one. It does you zero good to tell anyone about this thing.
Yeah, this is a real Austin Justice sandwich justice situation where just having it in existence puts a target on your back. It incentivizes other people to vote you out, especially if you have a good relationship.
Which honestly doesn't make a whole lot of sense because you're targeting someone, but like the concept of the Legacy Advantage is you choose who it goes to. So if you tell someone and then they tell other people, why would that person give the advantage to you?
We will see in a future season exactly why you don't tell anybody about this thing.
Yes.
So that is my advice. That's just the consultant moment. Do not tell anyone you have this. All right, on Millennials Tribe, we have Jay, Figgy, and Taylor who are going to form the Triforce Alliance, which is not the reference I would have expected coming from these guys because they're like the cool kids alliance. They're going to bring in Michelle, so it's more like a quad force, and then Taylor and Figgy are going to start a showmance.
Immediately.
Immediately. Over on Gen X, Rachel, our first boot of the episode, she's kind of on the confrontational side. She's blunt. She kind of tells it how it is. I wouldn't say mean, just straightforward. And like, you don't want to be the straightforward, blunt person on the island, especially in the early days. Not a good look.
Be adaptable.
And she'll say, like, I didn't mean to be mean, but it's like, okay, I know you didn't mean to, but people generally don't appreciate it, especially people from the Midwest. That's where I get in trouble once in a while. David Wright, absolute nervous wreck. Instantly.
Famous confessional. I'm scared of bugs. I'm scared of the water. I'm scared of dark. I'm scared of the lightning. I'm scared of everything.
He's 3 fields dialed up to 11. She was scared of leaves, so was he, along with everything else. And he's ultra paranoid about idols from the get-go. Just, David has a rough day one.
And he's, like, generally very incapable of survival tasks.
Yep.
Mostly.
What I have heard is he's very good at making fire on the island. That was one thing he was really good at, but like everything else,
probably practiced a bunch.
Probably anxiety. He's like, I'll learn how to make fire. That'll help. So I'm guessing he just did that like relentlessly. We have a really bad storm night one. So the next day, Jeff, who's left, I think he's just feeling bad because he just kind of threw these guys to the wolves in cyclone season. He gives both tribes a tarp to ride out the storm. He's like, but I want them back as soon as the weather gets better. Don't make me come looking for it or else.
And he did
a threat.
I'll say, and day one, he did warn them, like, hey, you need to get a shelter going because, like, there are bad storms coming. Like, we know this, and usually they don't talk about this. Like, they don't give them a heads up. It's more so just like, well, if it happens, it happens. No, they're getting full warning on
this is bad. Bad enough that Jeff is going to show up later and evacuate both camps. They're going to go into evacuation protocol at basically they're taking to the production HQ and just putting lockdown pretty much.
One, do you think they're having buyer's remorse about Fiji?
I wonder, because this happens like one more time in Fiji where they have a really bad cyclone. I wonder if they move their production schedule slightly.
I'll say because nowadays, now that they know just kind of the system and what makes sense just timing wise, season wise, it's what, April and June?
I can't remember.
I think are the, like, season right now, season 50 is.
Yeah, they're there right now.
Being played as we speak.
Yep.
But what'd you say? Was this like in the fall or something?
I thought this was maybe March.
Oh, okay.
So maybe they just pushed it back a month or two.
That was what I thought too.
Yeah,
but
maybe it's like May and June now. Especially with the shorter seasons, it's a little easier. I listened to interviews with them afterwards. They were kind of just putting lockdown. They couldn't talk to each other. They were just and they were separated by tribe too. It was at the production camp.
Oh, okay.
Where kind of like we saw in Borneo when Kelly Wigglesworth got to go there for a reward.
So you're not supposed to be here.
Spaghetti.
A tree ended up falling on Gen X's shelter. So yeah, it was a good thing they were not there.
Yeah,
crushes the pancakes their shelter. All right, back into the game. David's gonna go idol hunting, and everyone sees him. Everyone. Mari and Hannah, they're worried about the Cool Kids Alliance. And so they start planting seeds against Figgy. Figgy's going to get most of the hot water around this alliance because she's in the showmance and she's smarter than Taylor. Let's be honest.
It's more of a, this is what we expect of you. And we expect more of Figgy than we do of Taylor.
So they're going to start trying to make a counter move against Figgy. We'll see how that plays out for them. We're not going to find out this time because at the immunity challenge, Millennials are going to win. It's an interesting challenge, though. I always like these. They have choices to make during the challenge. There's a series of obstacles, and they can make 2 of the obstacles easier, but each time they do that, they make the puzzle at the end harder. So, like, there's a bramble crawl, and then they can make it easier for them to crawl through, and there's a balance beam that they can make wider. But if they choose to do that, the puzzle gets harder. So the Millennials make it one easier, the Gen X tribe makes both easier, and Millennials are going to win on the puzzle just because the Gen X has the hardest puzzle. So Rachel and David both claim that they were really good at puzzles. They blow it and even swap out with other people. But Michelle and Figgy dominate the puzzle and the Millennials win.
So are you saying that the right move was to make it harder up until the puzzle?
I think you want the easiest puzzle possible because, you'll lose a few seconds maybe on the obstacles, but the puzzle's where it really matters. Unless you royally screw up, the puzzle's the only thing that matters.
The older I get, the more I understand why they wanted to simplify the ropes course or like the rope maze that they had to wiggle their way through. Because I'm not as flexible as I was 5 years ago, and if this is the trend, man, I see why the older we get, the more frustrated we get. So maybe make that one easier. But the fact that they kind of took both of them, I don't know. Puzzles are notoriously great equalizers in Survivor. So why would you make your puzzle 40% harder?
Because David and Rachel claim they could handle it. That's why.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Recipe for disaster.
Puzzle confidence.
So we're going to get an alliance made on the Gen X tribe. It is Brett and Chris, Paul and Jessica, Sunday, and Lucy. So we get a group of 6 out of 10. So that's enough. And so the debate, allegedly, is between David and Rachel. They both screwed up on the puzzle. David is paranoid maniac looking for idols, and Rachel is annoying. But they're going to end up on Rachel because David's going to campaign hard to save himself. And the thing with David, everyone really likes David. He's got a great social game. Like, he's driving people nuts a little bit with the paranoia, but people really like him, and he's fun to be around. He's funny. That's key. If people like being around you, they're more inclined to save you.
Morale boosters are a real thing.
Yep. So it's really going to be like a turn towards Rachel and Cece, who are kind of the two people on the bottom. And those two are going to form an alliance, but it's not going to save them. We're going to get 5 votes for Rachel, 3 votes for Cece, 1 vote for David, 1 vote for Sunday. What?
People's first tribal. They're not all on the same page.
Baby's first tribal. The alliance is 6. They're going to split their votes between Rachel and Cece, and then David and Ken are going to jump on board on the Rachel vote. Cece's going to vote for David. Okay, fine. Rachel votes for Sunday. Where'd that come from?
Maybe it was personal.
It's weird edit on that one. So based on what we were shown, it seems like it should have been a split vote between David and Rachel. That's what we were kind of told. And obviously you want to split the vote, but I don't know. Maybe taking David out because he's got the idol makes sense.
Maybe.
You think he has the idol. He doesn't have it, but you think he might have it. Put half the votes on David. He plays his idol. Rachel goes out instead. I don't know.
I'm not going to tell them what they should have done. To me, if you've got 8 votes that went in a particular split, they didn't care whether or not Cece or Rachel went home. Because it's so early, I'm going to trust them. I'm not all that too worried about David if they like him enough. But the idol thing, he probably should have caught a few more votes. At least as like a warning. Like, hey, we're watching you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm mostly just going to trust them on this one. But I probably would have gone for David just because, like, morale's great. But yeah, the risk of an idol and also him not really being able to contribute, not only at camp, but they don't really know it yet, I don't think, but like at challenges either, like, and to the point of like actually being a detriment to the tribe. Yeah. So
David is tiny.
David is tiny. He is struggling even just to cut a coconut, let alone help with anything at camp. Like, yes, he can start a fire. A lot of people probably at this point should be able to start a fire, so don't have that be a reason. So I think that I would take out David.
Yeah, based on the edit, I think David should be the main target, and he should have gone home because he didn't have an idol. Yeah, based on like other stuff, like I know David's social game kept him in the game. He really wasn't ever a major target. It was kind of just a bad edit. So with that information, I'm fine with Rachel going home.
I know oftentimes we are very game body on this podcast, and I think from a game bot perspective, if we zoom out, it should be David. Because someone who's running around looking for idols causing chaos, even if they are the most likable person in the world, is a person who can blow up your game if they decide they want to.
Yep.
But I have to say, the older I get, the more I can understand if someone is just being generally annoying and you don't want them to win because this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, send them home.
It's more than you don't want them to win. It's you just don't want to be on the beach with them anymore and you want to enjoy your time.
Well, and it can. I think both can be true. And so if that was Rachel to them and that's them maybe exhibiting a little bit of that, hey, we're older, a little more life experience, we're not as worried about getting $1 million right now as getting this person out of my face.
And we said it before, like, if that is not your goal on Survivor, is not to win, like, that's kind of a backward thing, you just want the experience, that's totally fine and valid. But that's not what we're here for, the podcast.
Yes.
That's not what we're trying to do. By all means, if that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. And we're here to tell you how to win.
It's just, to me, 5 years ago when we started the podcast, I wouldn't have thought about this, but now I'm very protective of my inner peace.
Old and crotchety.
Hey, you can always take out David the next time. Take out the person who you might not want to be around, and then when you probably lose again at some point, take out David. Sure.
Befriend David, have him use his idol, and
just in case there's a swap,
and then he votes out someone else.
Best and worst player of the episode. For best player, I have Jessica. She got into the alliance of 6. Took out Rachel, which is a fine move, I think. And what puts her over the top for me is she spotted that legacy advantage and got it without being spotted. So Jessica's my pick.
Yeah, I was originally on Jay over on the Millennials tribe because for these first couple days, they were fairly like cohesive, even if they didn't get their shelter built right away. They did some, stereotypical millennial stuff. But Jay got into that solid alliance of 4 with plenty of people who they could have brought in quickly, whereas on the whole, the tribe was more fractured. And he was kind of the linchpin until Taylor and Figgy came together. I'm going to give the group of 6 on Gen Xers more points upon further consideration, and then Jessica got the legacy advantage to put her over the top, so I'm going to say Jessica as well.
I'm going to give it to Brett, again, in the 6 and everything. But we didn't really talk about, but there was a conversation between him, Chris, and David while they were watching, I don't remember who, but someone go off and just kind of be not necessarily sketchy because there were 1 or 2 people, but like David was being really paranoid, shocker, with Brett and Chris. And they're trying to like kind of like keep him from being too paranoid because it's way too early to just be scrambling like that, like on like day 1. Yep. I think is what it was. And then David went off to like tail this person or these 2 people in the woods, and Brett and Chris seemed to bond a little bit over like David's paranoia. Mm-hmm. So that was just kind of the first instances of there being maybe a like tight duo within the greater alliance. So that was something that was really nice to see.
Okay. Worst player, Derek, who do you got?
Well, I want to open this up with a discussion because I think it's so easy to say, David. I mean, paranoid wreck, looking for idols. But here's the thing. He got 1 vote because his social game was so good. He was so likable and so good at building connections that they did the thing that probably isn't best from like a GameBot perspective. In that case, is the worst player somebody more like Cece who's making an alliance with the pariah on the tribe instead of trying to integrate better with the majority and doing a worse job at it and getting more votes? It could be Ken for the same reason for not keeping David at more of an arm's length. So I kind of feel like switching my answer to Cece, but from a pure gameplay perspective, it is David, and I'm going to hold it David, but I kind of wanted to mention Cece.
You're able to switch it.
I'm not going to because we're too early, and so like I don't want people to think this is how you do it. Go be a paranoid wackadoo, and then have a social game good enough to overcome that. Like, don't make these early mistakes.
That's why I had David, and I'm going to stick with David, because, I would say 9 times out of 10, maybe 8 times out of 10, David probably would be going in this situation. Paranoia is, especially day 1, people are just looking for a reason to vote someone out. Yes, that could be, it's really hard to get along with this person, and that's the reason for voting someone out. Or it could be that they're paranoid, and they can't trust you, and you're not overly helpful at camp. Like, David probably, in my eyes, should have been the one to go here. And I think he was more lucky because of his social game and the fact that there was someone else who didn't have a good social game. If there was someone, if there was no one on the tribe that rubbed people the wrong way, it's probably David.
Yep. Yeah. Cece did a bad thing. David did many bad things and 1 good thing. So David's my worst. Add in his poor performance in the Paul's at the Immunity Challenge when he said he could do it. So David is my worst. All right. Episode 1 in the books. Let's talk about our winner picks. Josh.
Yes.
Do you remember who your original winner pick was?
I don't for sure. I had a feeling that I was looking between a couple of people, but I think I ended up having Brett as my original winner pick. I don't know that for sure. It just feels like that feels right.
Yep. So you had Brett. We'll just go with that. Would you stick with him?
I actually would. There are a couple other people that I liked here. Maybe I would have taken another look at Zeke, but I feel good about Brett. And just if it was a clean slate and I was watching the season for the first time, no bias or anything like that, I think I would have still had Brett here.
I had Zeke originally. I'm sticking with him. I think Zeke's great.
Yeah, so I know my original winner pick. I was going for a redemption story, so I picked Hannah Shapiro. I like how bold I was, but if I could swap, I would. My 2 people for consideration, and it's because they have those moments in the episode that are very Chris Doherty-esque. Zeke, on the Millennials tribe, he has the confessional where he's like, I feel like the elder statesman. I know he's the second oldest, but I feel like someone who's a little bit older and has an appreciation for the Gen X point of view in a world of free-spirited millennials here. Okay, cool. Someone who understands both worlds. We have that exact same moment with Ken on the other side where Paul is saying, those free spirits, they don't know how to do any hard work. And then Ken's like, yeah, but they're smart. They know how to handle themselves.
Why did you have a Boston accent for Ken?
I don't know. I guess
he's from Colorado.
Those Bostonian Rocky Mountain accents.
Yes, of course.
But he's like, they're smart. They can, you don't give them enough credit. So,
Rocky Mountain. The Rocky Mountains.
The Rocky Mountains. So I had Zeke and Ken as my 2 finals if I could swap, and if I were picking between the 2, I'd go with Zeke. But
stuck with Hannah.
We'll
see how it goes for us.
We'll see how it goes.
We all make the merch. I'll tell you that much. Episode 2, Love Goggles. So over on Gen X, Paul's kind of the leader of this Gen X alliance. Plan is to take out CC and David next. Ken's also on the bottom, but he's jacked. So you want to keep Ken. So makes sense. But David is going to make him give himself a little bit of redemption. He's going to be the one to make fire for the tribe. It's not really enough to save him, but, every little bit helps.
Mm-hmm. He's still going home, but I love the guy.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
Thanks for the fire.
And I think David kind of knows that he's still in trouble, so he goes out and he finds himself an idol.
For real this time.
If you're going to be caught looking for an idol, get the idol.
You might as well be guilty.
Yeah, you might as well be guilty.
In for a penny, in for a pound.
If I'm going to jail for murder, I want to have committed the murder.
Tell you one thing, I'm not going to jail for not committing murder.
And
at that point.
we're going to get to it, but it works out great that way because then people, if they're suspicious of you having an idol and you do end up finding it and you burn it early, then that target theoretically should be off your back.
Yep, so David could play this early and just get himself back into some people's good graces, or at least get the target off.
Leave it early in the season. Just be like, yeah, he was looking early, but we don't think he has it. Another one now.
Yeah. Figgy and Taylor, they're showmans that they're making out.
Ugh. Mackin'.
Day 5, I think at this point, they're macking it on the beach.
Tonsil hockey.
At night.
Night.
I don't know if they think that no one can.
At night.
At night.
I heard you laughing.
They ain't slick.
They ain't slick. They think they are. Either that or they don't care, which is worse.
Both are bad.
If you're gonna do it, do it in a way that's not gonna get caught, but don't do it in the first place.
Do it at Ponderosa.
Yeah, once you lose the game, which
Ponderosa. Yeah, that's fine. No one cares then.
And also, hopefully, you've brushed your teeth by then. Gross.
Yeah, and Michaela's going to be the one to hear them. Yeah, and she has a great confession. That's nasty.
That's nasty.
So, yeah, the next day, Michaela's going to tell the entire tribe, which, again, not good. You want to tell that to people one-on-one.
And also, I don't know if she knows it yet, but, it's going to be so obvious that you don't need to rat them out.
And then there's going to be a lot of bad blood and really snippy comments between Michaela and Figgy, which are very, very funny.
Yeah, little mean girls.
Yeah. Smile if you kissed her. Smile if you kissed her.
Ken and David are going to make an alliance. They want to take out Paul. They don't like Paul. He's kind of boss. He's the leader of the Gen X alliance. He's the oldest, his way or the highway kind of guy. So David is going to tell Ken about the idol. Nope. Not yet. Wait till you lose the immunity challenge before you do that.
I don't hate this move for David. You have an idol, which means you can use it to save yourself. If you are target number 1 and you've got one person that you trust and you're playing it on yourself, you can tell any one person you want and it doesn't matter. So if you want to use it to try and change your position or to earn an ally, I actually don't care if you do it before or after the challenge at this point. Typically, yes, but David's in a tough spot.
It's a unique situation where I think that he's so desperate for a close alliance member, and that there's no guarantee that this is going to work. But if you can identify someone who might be a little bit more on the outs, sure,
who really values loyalty and trust. If you're going to do this, Ken is a perfect person to tell because he's one of those guys who's all about honor, integrity, loyalty, and trust.
Yeah, and the other part is there is more authenticity if you do it before you need to do it. If you're going to Ken with this information afterward, it might just be, oh, well, this is just a marriage of convenience. So if I help you, you won't shoot your one vote at me, I guess.
Yeah, if you're going to do this, I would not do this to, a Brett or a Chris or someone in that main, the top of the main alliance. They're in that situation, absolutely not. There's no point in doing that.
So they're cool, we can do something, and they're going to pull CC in as well as the third person in their group because they're the bottom 3. Paul is going to work himself too hard, and he collapses and medicals have to come in. It ended up just being an early stage of heat exhaustion and some dehydration, so he recovers pretty quickly, which is good. Don't want it go wrong to happen again.
No,
yeah, and there's a couple instances here in the Premerge, they're taking just abundance of caution. They're like, yeah, we're not messing with that again.
Yep. We got scared.
We are on the heels of Korong, and that's actually something that I wanted to pay attention to going forward, so I'm glad that it's coming up. I want to pay attention. How much more are we on this stuff following Korong? How much did production change after that?
When is the next medical evacuation? I don't think it's till David versus Goliath. So, yeah.
But even just medical getting called in, or Jeff saying don't push yourself. Hey, take a break.
We're gonna get medical called twice in the Premerge.
Yeah.
Immunity challenge. Ken is going to win it for the Gen X tribe. So Millennials are going to tribal council. Mari has a plan. She wants to get Hannah and Zeke, Adam, Michaela, and Will on board against this Quad Force Alliance with the plan to take out Figgy, break up the showmance. That is an amazing plan. I love this plan.
And not only is it like just an amazing plan, but like this is a sound plan. This is
Logical.
a good idea. A clear power couple on day one. And like we haven't tested battle lines yet. I don't like that.
And not only that, but a tight group of 4.
Yeah, and like a duo within a type group of 4. Mari, #Mari did nothing wrong.
Unfortunately, that's not true.
Yeah, I know.
I've heard from interviews. So here's the thing with Mari. Mari talked no strategy with anyone until this day, after they lost. So the strategic social connections were not made with Mari. And so people were not... They had already made those connections with other people, and that's why Mari's plan doesn't work, because she took too long to go for this. She played it too low-key too early on. She didn't really reach out to too many people.
Well, and I think that's where that's a really important thing to note, just because we do talk about the difference of like making plans too early versus waiting until you lose a challenge. You know, talking about who should go next and making plans against someone to get them out. Yeah, those you might want to wait until after the challenge happens, but having more just preliminary trust and just kind of vague alliance lines is something that you want to have brought up before that point.
So she kind of vibed and died. So very low key. What I'll add then as the last little bit, you need to have a good read on your tribe, because one thing about this Millennials tribe, they don't really care about having these pre-game discussions. They're a little bit younger and they understand the name of the game. These players have been watching the game since the day they were born. So if you're Mari, maybe it is a little bit safer to have these conversations a little earlier on to try and set something in stone before you lose a challenge. But you just have to read your tribe and you have to be right.
So Zeke's going to tell Jay the plan. And then Jay's like, oh, I don't want to have to do this, but, I guess that's what it's going to be. But Zeke screws up her. He says, we'll take out Figgy this time. And maybe we can take out Michaela next time, because, nobody's really close to her. And that was a mistake. You don't need to say who's going next. You just need the one. Unless you were doing a split vote, you only need the one name. Michelle and Jay. So this quad force is going to survive this. Figgy and Taylor, the showmance will continue. Do nothing Figgy and Taylor did. It is 100% Michelle and Jay saving the day. And that was the big thing. Michelle and Jay's social games were on point. They had bonds and relationships with everyone. They were really well liked, and that's why they managed to make this work. So they decided to turn things around. They don't want to lose their numbers. They want to make something else happen. So Michelle's going to pull in Will, and Jay is going to play peacemaker between Figgy and Michaela to get Michaela on board. He's like, Figgy goes here, Michaela, you're next if Zeke has his way. So you guys need to make up and work together here. Otherwise, you're both screwed. And damn, did they do a phenomenal job here.
One of the few times that we get this on screen in the history of Survivor, where two people who like can't really stand each other actually do come together to do something. I mean, this is so reminiscent of like Castaway tribe, at least on this half of the Millennials. So good on Jay for being able to make it work, and then good on Figgy and Michaela for recognizing the writing on the wall.
Yep.
But now from a Will. Michaela's makes sense if like they're gonna come for you next. Sure, you can put your beef aside. What about Will?
Will was super close to Jay, and so Jay just got him to go along with it. So Will was super close to Jay and Michelle, and then Hannah. But he went with Michelle and Jay.
My opinion for Will, especially with his age, just get into the majority alliance. Get into the majority alliance, and you're giving yourself a fighting chance going forward to do something else. Don't be on the wrong side of this vote.
And the good part about him is that you're getting yourself into an alliance where there's a showmance going on. That's going to be an easy target later. Like you might not have to worry about being at the bottom of a 5 or a 6. Like I think I can take a couple. Or I have a reasoning to take a couple of these people out.
Yeah. At Tribal Council, it's really funny because Michaela and Figgy, they still sell it that they're at each other's throats, and they get really snippy with each other at Tribal Council, but they're going to vote together. It's really funny.
I think it was 100% honest, except for the pen to paper.
Yeah.
Which was hilarious.
They meant everything they said, but they knew, like, we have to work together. It's really funny.
Nice acting job. What acting?
What acting?
I hate you.
But Michelle and Jay, they're not done. They want to they don't need to do this, but they want to make sure they have as many numbers as they can get. They go to work on Hannah mid-Tribal Council to get her to flip as well. And it works. They get it, and they get her to flip.
Maybe this is a hot take, but I did not like this. I think because it was unnecessary. If it's going to work with Michaela and Will and you're confident in those because, just logically it makes sense with those, then you don't need to do this. Or maybe like you can mention it to Hannah and, or maybe do it a little bit earlier than at Tribal. Do it, the classic 5 minutes beforehand where they don't have time to, go off and talk with other people. But Hannah is a little paranoid, and she's going to keep talking about it, and now you're starting to cause a scene at Tribal.
Maybe they weren't sure. They were worried she was going to do something, but then when they saw, because, production chooses how you sit at Tribal Council. You don't get to pick. They'd line you up and send you in order. Hannah's on the very end, next to Jay and Michelle, and that's it. They're the three at the end, and maybe they figure like, oh, we can just whisper this direction, and only Hannah will hear it. So maybe they just seized an opportunity. It's debatable on whether this is a good move or not. It works, though. And so I will give them credit for making this work.
I think you need to give credit where it's due. And to take the other side of your argument, Josh, I understand you don't need her vote to make this work, but you have to remember you need to find a way to move forward with this tribe. And if you can keep avenues open, especially if it's tenuous where you're the four, the quadruple or whatever, 7 is better than 6, especially if, you're talking about 9. Now all of a sudden the minority 2 who are left out, Adam and Zeke, they have a lot more work to do to try and turn the tide. So I'm gonna trust them that they kind of knew who they were working with, what was going on. Maybe they really didn't have a chance to talk to Hannah ahead of time because it was too short a notice. I don't hate it, but it could have gone horribly wrong. High risk, moderate reward.
The one thing that helps is Michelle and Hannah were probably like two of the tightest. Like that was a really tight duo on the island. And Michelle wanted to make sure Hannah wasn't left out in the cold. That was kind of her reasoning.
It wasn't really shown, though.
It wasn't really shown. This is all in post-game interviews that I've listened to. And again, not canon, but I've heard it from more than one source. So that was part of it. But, why didn't she do it earlier? We don't know.
And she is going to be able to convince Hannah.
Yep.
And honestly, I think that's a bad move for Hannah. Now, in hindsight, results-oriented, yes, it was a good move, but you don't know if she's telling the truth. She could have just lied straight to your face and convinced you to change your vote at Tribal Council, and you could have been the changing vote.
Hannah asked Jay, and Jay corroborates without those two talking to each other at Tribal Council. So at least Hannah asked a second source. But more importantly, is Mari is so unconcerned with all the conversation that is happening in the corner. I know this is a big ask because this is a Survivor game-changing moment. You got to pull a JT here and stand up and start talking to people and figure out what's going on. JT is going to be the first to do that. That's next season. To invent a new move or maneuver is a lot to ask, but that's what should have happened here.
For Mari, going open forum at this point is better because she ends up going home.
Big ask, I know, but that's what should have happened.
And also, she was like, "Oh, I'm sure Hannah's just paranoid about something, or she's just having a difficult time."
No, she's probably just thinking about and talking about puppies and butts. No, she's not, Mari.
We're at Tribal Council.
Be concerned. Be afraid.
Now, they're showing confidence in your alliance, and they're showing confidence in your plan, and then there's being complacent.
Yep, this is complacent.
And I think we stepped into that zone a little bit.
And the capper doll, this is Hannah takes about a year to vote.
So funny when Jeff Probst has to stick his head into frame as Hannah.
Poke his head around the corner. Are you okay?
Are you still good? And one subtle thing I noticed is when she put her vote in the urn, people in the background were clapping.
I didn't notice that.
Didn't show it at all, but you could see them start clapping.
I wonder what the time is. I wonder what it is. It's going to be 7 votes for Mari, 3 for Figgy. So Zeke and Adam were left out. I think I'm fine with this. It makes sense for Michaela, Will, and Hannah to flip, I think, at this point. Mari's social game was lacking. So ultimately, I'm fine with this.
Take the lacking social game from Mari, which I'm taking at your word because I haven't consumed as much of this as you, and Zeke's mistake in giving Michaela's name. So even if Mari's got a poor social game, her logic is sound. And I think at this point in the season, game bot moves are the most important to maximize your odds for success going forward. But then Zeke throws out another name, someone who was supposed to be in his alliance in order to make this first vote work. That's devastating. Can't be doing that. So, I'm okay with it being one of those 3, and Mari is just as good as a Zeke or an Adam at that point. So it makes enough sense.
in theory, this is the wrong move just because you have a really tight group, and that should just be red flags all over the place for people. But then just because people feel threatened about, where they might stand or if they're going to be going next, I completely understand why we got to this point, and you can hopefully... you got to be careful about this because you don't want to wait too long, because a tight duo, especially within a group of 4 that's very obviously together, that's going to be really dangerous. So you really have to do that next vote. Take out one of the members of the power couple.
For best player, I'm going to give it to Michelle. It was close between Michelle and Jay. They were both excellent. But Michelle was the one who took the initial step into saving Figgy. She put her alliance in power. She got Will in hand and flip. She took out Mari. Again, amazing job to Jay as well, but Michelle got the ball rolling.
Yeah, I said literally Michelle or Jay. I said Michelle seemed to do more in galvanizing the group, but the linchpin in that was getting Figgy and Michaela to work together, and that was all Jay.
Yep.
So I think I'm going to give more credit to Jay just because you don't see like mortal enemies working together all that often, but it's a game of inches. So Jay, but I mean, I'm not fighting Michelle at all.
Both of those definitely make sense, and it probably should be one of those two. I did hop on over to the Gen X tribe and give it to David just because he is in such a bad position that the fact that you did actually find the idol when people had been paranoid about you having an idol, I think is very important. And the fact that he reached out to someone to make that first close alliance member just brings him up from being what it could potentially be dead last on his tribe to actually have a fighting chance now.
From the edge of extinction.
No.
All right, Derek, who do you got for worst?
So I understand that Zeke could be an easy answer here with throwing out Michaela's name. I suspect that's where Ryan will go with this. But I am going to go ahead and do the Derek one and say Taylor, because of something really dumb he said. Jay confronted him about his duo situation with Figgy. And Taylor said, well, bro, I've just decided, man, that's just how I'm gonna play the game, is in this power couple situation. I'm like,
that's gonna work.
All right, so you lose. Okay, have fun.
Lose. Good day, sir.
Good day,
You
sir.
lose.
So yes, I understand. Him and Figgy and Figtails survives this episode by none of their own doing. They are being dragged by their ears. They need to leave room for Jesus. Michelle told them that.
Yeah, Michelle told them that.
Elite couple name, I have to say, because I did not remember that from the first time watching it. When it came up and was mentioned of Figtails, I'm like, oh my god, that's amazing.
Honestly, it is adorable.
I love the name so much.
Pretty sure they don't last, but I wish
Nope.
they would have. Not at all.
Ends badly.
Poorly.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sad.
We'll get more into that in the
reunion show.
The reunion show. It's very funny.
Well, so I did stay with the power couple, but I went with Figgy on this one. Taylor's perfectly fine too, but just historically, when you have power couples, a lot of times it's the girl that goes out first and the guy's left there, and he, maybe he gets taken out right away after, or maybe, now that he's free of those shackles, he can go off and do something in the game. So I always am, a little harder on the girl because of that, just because it seems like you're usually in more danger. Also, she's a better player than Taylor.
Yeah.
So it would make sense to take her out instead of Taylor in this specific situation.
Yeah, it's worse. Figgy is a big fan of Survivor. She's great in interviews she's done with Rob Post. Figgy is great enough in her post-game interviews and just various commentary on Survivor since this. I'd like to see her come back because I think she has a lot more to show, especially as she's gotten a little more mature. So yeah, Taylor's definitely the worst player, and I expect more from Figgy. I'm gonna give mine to Zeke. And the only reason I ended up going this way, because Taylor was the other one, because of what you said.
Yeah.
Taylor and Figgy were saved by their social bonds with Jay and Michelle. They get along well with them. That's great. And so I was like, all right, fine. And then Zeke just throwing out Michaela's name that was so bad. That gave them the ammo they needed. So I'm going to give mine to Zeke with the strongest dishonorable mention to Taylor. At least Figgy worked with Michaela.
And man, I'm not going to fight with you, but I needed to say the quote. Dude, that's just how I'm going to play the game.
Episode 3, your job is recon. Adam and Zeke know they're on the outs, and they're going to go to the beach. And in one of my favorite moments in the season, Hannah wants to talk to them.
Ugh.
And bad on both of them, especially Zeke. They don't want to talk right now. Hear her out, guys. Hear her out. That's the right thing to do. This all could have been avoidable if you did the right thing of listening just for a few minutes. They don't want to. So they tell Hannah basically, like, we don't want to talk right now. We'll talk later. And Hannah will not go away. She's insisting they talk about it. And they're just like, we don't want to talk to you this moment. Just wait for later. And Hannah will just keep sitting there. But guys, I want to. No, we don't want to hear it.
I understand.
But
we're
going to stay here and keep talking. It is hilarious. If you wrote this scene in a movie, it'd be unbelievable writing. I would not buy this. The fact that this happens is unbelievable.
I mean, it was so bad that I didn't even find it hilarious. I found it maddening, just because it's just like,
that's fair.
Like, yeah, bad on Zeke, worse on Hannah, just for not like, because if someone is going to make that decision of saying like, hey, like, I don't want to talk, like, that's their choice, and it's probably not great for them, but you need to respond appropriately to that and not piss them off anymore. So like, and she just keeps going and going and going. It was insane.
This is both parties doing the worst possible thing that they could have done in this interaction in this moment. And Adam, weirdly enough, I didn't much love how Adam was like only on Zeke's team for this whole thing, because like Adam didn't seem to care if Hannah wanted to talk to him, but Hannah was insistent. I need to talk to Zeke, and Adam's like, he doesn't want to talk to you right now. He doesn't want to talk to you right now. I thought it was hilarious.
It is really funny
because it's just like, this doesn't happen in real life, not like this anyway.
It's so good. We're gonna have a summit. We haven't done this in a long time. Rock draw to go to a summit. So 4 people from each tribe get to go and just have like a lunch and get to know the other tribe a little bit. And I always like to when tribe members have the opportunity to interact with other tribes, kind of like Exile Island and Token Chains. And you could get something like that. Nothing is really gonna come from this, but I still like that Survivor tried this. But it's
little mingling.
Little mingling. It's Will, Jay, Taylor, and Figgy, David, Chris, Paul, and Cece. And David and Cece are immediately going to flip on Paul and tell Figgy and Taylor that Paul is the leader. If we mix it up, we'll work together and we'll take Paul out. Oh, okay.
I love how open everybody is. This is so fun.
Well, and they resisted for a little bit. Like, there was a little bit just like, oh yeah, like, we're all good and like whatever. But then like the second that they dispersed a little bit, it's like, all right, let's go.
All right, down to brass tacks. Okay, we said what we needed to say.
And I like it for David and Cece. They're in a bad spot. Reach out.
As you should.
So yeah, I'm totally fine with this.
Be very clear as well. I don't like them. I will vote with you. I will not change my answer in 3 days if we see each other.
So immunity challenge, one of the big obstacles is a balance beam and you have to carry heavy bags over it. Taylor is a beast at this. Really impressive physical performance from Taylor. Quite the opposite for Cece. She is going to lose it for the Gen X tribe. Badly. So Cece's the target because she's really bad at the challenges. But Paul and Jessica are going to have a conversation. And Sunday's there too, but it's really between Paul and Jessica. And, they have the plan ready. Cece's going. And Jessica just kind of makes an offhand comment. Unless you and the guys have an all-guys alliance going on, you, Brett and Chris. And Paul's like, if that happened, I would let you know, and I would tell you that the alliance is no longer together. Like, I would give you the respect of saying we're not going to work together anymore.
But then he goes one small step further where he says, and I would vote you guys out one by one.
Yeah, but like if.
But that's a big thing to say, though.
It's not a good thing to say. I think Paul does not confirm that this alliance exists. He's like, there isn't one, but if it did happen, I would at least tell you. That's the big thing. Jessica does not take it like that. She's like, oh my God, they're going to flip on us.
Oh, I took it as...
No, yeah, I didn't take it that way.
See, I think Josh and I are in lockstep. I took it as Paul says that him, Brett, and Chris are the top of the alliance, and the women are the bottom.
Oh, that's how I took it.
That is how I took it 100%. And I think this is going to be reflected, and I think we're going to have some disagreements at the end of this episode. I think
it's a miscommunication on both parties. Paul misspeaks a little bit, and Jessica mishears and assumes the worst, and presses the panic button a little too soon.
I think Paul misspoke, but I think there was truth in what he was saying. I think that he was. I think that he was actually pretty honest about saying like, this doesn't exist. But if it did, like, I would be a part of it and I would let you know. And because like the decency of letting you know, and oh, how great that I'm like letting you know about, like, come on.
And an important piece of ancillary information, they just went to tribal and voted out Rachel when it probably should have been David. So the women are already down in the numbers, and a men's alliance in theory here could whittle them down.
Sure. But the key part of this conversation is this isn't a thing. This hasn't happened.
But
It
Jessica
doesn't
know
matter.
that, though.
It doesn't matter if it is. It's about what he would do if it was a thing. That'd be like, you know, that'd be like a women's alliance. Like, you're super scared of a women's alliance. And if they said like, hey, if someone came up to you and said, you know, we're not going to do this, but if people got together and started talking about a women's alliance, I would do that. Red flags, like warning bells and everything.
Red flag, sure. But that does not mean self-destruct the alliance right here, right now. This is just like, think things through, choose the best move for you, and, you know, go for it. Jessica panics. I think Jessica straight up panics and makes a really bad move.
What you do after that, maybe you don't self-destruct the alliance for Jessica, but you say, you make sure that it's a guy going home. Yep. I don't care how bad CC did in the challenge. Sure. It has to be a guy going home, that means. So, David.
Sure, fight for that if you want. What she's ultimately going to end up doing is bad and almost knocks her out of the game in the very next episode. I think this is a really bad move. So, Jessica's going to go to Sunday and Lucy, and they want to turn on Paul right here, right now. So, we're going to go to Tribal Council, and that's what's going to happen. It's going to be 6 votes for Paul, 3 votes for CC, Brett, Chris, and Paul all left out of the votes. Yeah, this is a bad time because you leave Brett and Chris out in the dust. 2 people you've worked with, you've trusted, you have no reason not to trust them. It's Paul you might have an issue with. Okay, fine. That's valid. That is valid to have an issue with him. But I still think you don't go for this right now. I think this was a panic reflex reaction, and it's going to blow up in Jessica's face. And through the grace of David's hidden immunity, that is the only reason Jessica lasts as long as she does.
I just kind of want to get into the best and worst because I feel like that's where the meat and potatoes on the rest of this episode is going to be.
Josh, best player of the episode. We'll just go straight to that.
I had David.
Well, I mean, it makes some sense. Obviously, their plan to go against Paul, David and Ken.
Yep. So David, Ken, and Cece join up with Jessica, Sunday, and Lucy to take out Paul.
Yep. So I had David just because still unsure about who, at least in the vote, like would be maybe not who like comes out the best, but like who caused it in like a good way, because I think there is that argument of Jessica blowing it up, and it's like, yeah, it could be good for her because she sees like this, it sees a dark future potentially for the women of the alliance, or maybe that Paul can't be trusted to have your back. So I actually went with David because he seemed to be the most opportunistic when it came to the summit. He did the most talking to other people across lines and made it so obviously clear that he was going to be willing to work with other people. So just the fact that he was doing things at the summit, I thought was really good.
I also had David, pretty much for the same reason. He made inroads with Figgy and Taylor, threw Paul right onto that bus and knocked him out of the game. And it's, I think taking out Paul is a bad move, but it is great for David.
I feel like Ryan's going to get mad at me, but I'm going to say Jessica is the best one. Because when this comment was made by Paul, I remember thinking immediately, from Jessica and the women's perspective, you cannot keep Paul any longer. You need him gone yesterday. Now, results-oriented thinking into next episode, sure, they should have brought in Chris and Brett and said, we have the numbers to do this with or without you. Paul's going home because he said that he would do a men's alliance and you're already up on the numbers. We're not dealing with that. That would have been the way to do it. But she got the numbers. She did what she needed to do. And you know what? If you're going to remake an alliance, which again, this is why I've got words for Jessica next episode. If you're going to remake it, after the first vote is the time to do it. If she wants to go with Cece and she wants to go with Sunday and Lucy and Ken and David going forward, because that puts the men in sort of like a weaker position within that alliance, puts them on top and puts the big guys on their heels, this is exactly the time to do it. This is a great move to put them in power if you don't have people like Lucy, Brett, and Chris on the tribe who just get obsessed with doing other things. But in this moment, at this time, this is a good move, and she was the genesis, and I agreed with it.
This is a terrible move. My worst player is Jessica. She panicked. She turned on her alliance too early. Again, if you want to take out Paul, that is a conversation you can have. I'm not saying she's wrong for being concerned. I'm saying she didn't think things through. She panicked and blew up her own alliance too early, prematurely, and it almost destroys her whole game. So Jessica's my worst player. For sure.
I'm more on Derek's side with this one just because I think it's really important to note that this is their second tribal council. And, you draw a line in the sand after the first tribal. But sand is very movable. You know, a nice breeze can cover up that line. So there's plenty of time to be able to redraw those lines with the new alliance. Just because you had 6 people at the first one doesn't mean that those are the 6 people you want to work with for the longevity of the game. You can learn more about the people in your alliance, be like, oh, I can't work with those people long term. I have known more about these other people after 9 days. I want to work with these guys more long term because I can't trust this other person. So I think that if you're going to do it, I think you do have to do it now rather than kind of having this in the back of your mind and just waiting 2 or 3 votes to then take out Paul later on, when I think people are going to be a lot more upset with you later. Now, damage control afterwards, a lot can be said about that. Or maybe you clue people into the vote now, like Brett and Chris and them, so that they actually like aren't blindsided by this. But as far as the decision, I think that was an important thing for Derek to say.
Like, I think you guys have a good point. You could make the Paul vote work. I just think the execution on Jessica's part was terrible.
I think she executed it and she got what she needed to do. But I'll jump over to my worst player of the episode. There's an argument to be made for Brett and Chris, because if you associate, it's not Brett, it's not Brett or Chris. I'm just saying, if you're associating with somebody like Paul, and then people who are flipping on Paul don't feel like they can tell you, that says a little bit of something about your social game. I'm landing on Hannah because of how poorly she handled the beach situation on the millennial side. There's an argument for Zeke, but like, if someone's a little bit upset after finding out that they're on their heels in $1 million game, give them a few minutes. Just let them know, hey, when you're ready, I want to talk. Don't do what she did. So I'm giving it to Hannah, but I think that very silently this speaks volumes about Chris and Brett.
I also had Hannah. I thought that this was just terrible. It was terrible on her part. And you got to remember, like, the context of this comes after her having her vote switch because someone convinced her to at tribal council to go against these people that you thought you had an alliance with. So, like, I get it. You want to be able to explain yourself, and you should be able to explain yourself after the vote. Like, in theory, yes, you should be able to. You gotta read people's emotions and let it go and talk to them either later in that night or the next morning.
When they want to. Let them make their next mistake and then talk to them.
It's going to be more productive that way anyways.
I will not argue at all with making Hannah your worst. I will slightly backpedal and say Jessica by far being the worst. Like, maybe not by far. But I still think she's the worst, but I get it, guys. Hannah is horrible.
My winner pick, Hannah, really starting off on a great foot.
It's that underdog story, right? The redemption.
We're still digging to look for rock bottom.
Episode 4, Who's the Sucker at the Table? They're going to get back to Camp Gen X, and same thing's kind of going to happen. Jessica wants to talk to Chris. Chris wants to hear nothing from her and does not want to talk to her. Eventually, they will be okay to talk, and she explains what happened with Paul, the conversation with Paul. And both Brett and Chris are like, that was never a thing. They're very skeptical of everything Jessica's saying. Like, this sounds like BS that you made up, because they had never talked about a guy's alliance, allegedly.
And this is where I have a hard time with what Jessica did. You have to remember, I take these notes before I watch the next episode. Jessica needed to be very clear and say, I don't believe that there was a men's alliance, but the way Paul said it told me that Sunday, Lucy, and myself are second fiddle to what you 3 had in Paul's eyes. I should have clued you into the votes.
Yeah.
I hope we can still work going forward.
And I don't think it was ever true that the guys weren't top. I don't even know if it was in Paul's mind. I don't think it was.
But it's a hypothetical that got talked about. Though. That's why it doesn't matter if it was true. What matters is what was said.
Lucy and Sunday immediately have buyer's remorse about this whole thing, and they regret what they did. They want to keep working with Brett and Chris, and they're like, this is Jessica's plan. This is all her fault. Let's take her out next. Oh, okay.
Whoops.
Wow, good read on that situation there, Jessica. Real trustworthy allies you got.
I mean, that's great and all, but, like, if you're gonna make a move to flip, don't flop.
Yeah. It's a weird situation for Lucy and Sunday. I'd love to know more on why. And I think it's simply because they like Brett and Chris a lot. I think it's that simple.
I think it is that simple. And that's where I say, again, my problems with what the Gen X tribe did and what Jessica did and what Sunday and Lucy are kind of doing now. And Brett and Chris, by the way, for being salty Betties about the whole thing. When you make a decision, like, a first vote is a first vote, but after that, you're making a decision, and I feel like you need to write it out. I said the same thing on season 43 when we were talking about, like, Cassidy. You need to finish voting her out. Like, that group in the pre-merge, finish voting them out. You're done with them. Wipe the slate clean. Go into the merge with something real, something solid. Don't flop back.
Yep.
Gen X is flipped. No, they made a decision. They flipped, and now they're trying to flop again. as a tribe. So it's like everyone is Cochraning at the same time.
Yeah, it's a bunch of fractured groups, and now they're trying to paste things back together, and this is so unnecessary.
Agreed.
And not only that, but this is going to set you up for it. A situation like this could set you up for just absolute obliteration when it comes to the post-merge.
Totally. Adam is going to go idol hunting. He's going to find the clue, and then later on he's going to come back, and he is going to get the idol. Hannah does see him searching. Hey, Adam, how's the idol hunt going?
And the way that she said this, like, it almost made me think, like, that the edit wasn't showing us that a lot of people were searching, and this is maybe just a running joke of, like, hey, like, whenever you see someone off on their own, you acknowledge it just because everyone's doing it. We didn't see that, but...
I wouldn't do that. But if I wanted to have the optimal fun playing Survivor, I would 100% be that guy. I'd be like, hey, how's the idol hunt going?
Good, how about you? Also good.
Also good.
We all know what's going on here. Come on.
Did you find the Beware advantage yet? I do think playing on this Millennial tribe would have been really fun.
Oh, yeah.
Did you find the Medallion of Power yet? Reward challenge. It's like the classic wrestling one, and get the life preserver from one end of the course to the other, physical contact, water swimming challenge, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? It's hilarious. That's why we care. Michaela is going to get her top knocked off, and so she's going to...
Oh, no, she's going to intentionally take it off because it's being used to hold her back.
Which happened to Aaron with Sandy and Tokensheens, and Aaron let Modesty win, and Michaela does not. And she's going to get the point. They're not going to win the challenge, but she's at least going to score the point with missing her top. Hella respect for that.
In her words, y'all gonna see some tatas today.
Great quote.
I wish that would have been the title of the episode.
But what's really fun is the waves are pretty heavy today, and Jeff is just going to get smacked by a wave.
Very rare this happens.
And it's right at the end of the challenge as they're winning. So, like, it's this big dramatic moment, and he's about to say, like, oh, like, Gen X wins. And then just gets hit. So like, whoa.
What was that about Gen X, says the ocean?
Smack. Gen X does win, though. So Lucy, who we have not heard from at all all season, she's had 0 confessionals up to this point. Purple Lucy. Lucy's going to talk to David and Ken about taking out Jessica next, because that's the move they want to make. She's very blunt with them and kind of demands they don't talk to anyone else about it. You can make that work if you are... You got to finesse it. Smooth like butter, and Lucy is not. This really pisses Ken off. Ken does not like being talked to like this, being told what he can and can't do. Ken will remember Lucy said this.
He will act upon Lucy saying this.
Sooner than we thought, because the immunity challenge, Millennials win, so yeah, Ken's going to act on it now. Jessica is the plan, but what Ken wants to do is he wants David, Cece, Jessica, and Sunday to turn on Lucy. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that. Why would Sunday turn on Lucy?
It's really unclear, but their reasoning is sort of, well, Rachel is gone for being a little bit annoying and not very additive. Paul's gone for being a fairly unreasonable personality, or at least in some of the conversations he was having. And now Lucy's being unreasonable. So why don't we just continue with the trend of, hey, look, there are no lines. There are no alliances here. Let's just get rid of like the least likable person here now.
Don't pop your head out.
Yep.
Yes.
So Ken is going to go tell Jessica that she's the target. And I love Jessica Lewis a lot. She's such a great person. I love listening to her podcast. It's really funny just seeing how bad like she gets whoopty-whopped in this episode. It's really funny.
This was bad.
She does not believe Ken at all, which is so funny because we know Ken is telling the truth. It's great TV. So she's going to go tell Lucy, like, yeah, Ken said I'm the target. And Lucy's like, no, it's Cece, for sure.
And not only that, but Ken also wants to vote you out.
Pay no attention.
So Ken and Lucy have a confrontation about this whole thing. It's very funny.
And it's honest.
It's honest. It's very honest. David comes up with a plan. He's like, Jessica's going home. I could play the idol on her, take control of this tribe, and Jessica will owe me forever. Not true. People don't owe you anything on Survivor. You can't assume that. That's kind of what he wants to do, is just take control of this tribe. But I think David is forgetting something critical here. This is the 4th tribal council in a theme season where we're swapping. The one exception to this rule is heroes versus villains, which is the outlier. If it is a theme season, we are swapping probably at 4, maybe sooner.
Maybe sooner.
Yeah.
I would have actually expected an episode sooner.
I would have bet money. If I'm in David's spot right here, I bet money that we swap in the next episode. So no, David, don't waste your idol on Jessica right now, is what I would say. No. You hold on to your idol and you wait for the swap.
It's hard. if we're not trying to predict a swap here, I like the idea just because I said it now. This is the third straight episode that I'm going to say it is David is working from either the bottom or close to the bottom. And I think each episode of the last 3, he is taking a small step up to get him into better positioning. What they're missing right now is trust among enough people to have it matter. And as we saw, Jessica trusted Lucy more than Ken here. And if you can swing her to your side and say, see, I told you so. We were telling you the truth. And Lucy wasn't. You could have a good group going forward. Whether or not you have Brett or Chris or Sunday with you, you could have a group of 4 moving forward. And that can be something. Also, burn the idol if people already think you have it. Now, I get it that if you have a swap incoming, it's better to have that idol. But if we're just saying right here, right now, not necessarily trying to predict what the game script that they have written out before the season is, I like it as a way to better put your positioning in the game.
I agree with you, Josh, but I think you have to try and predict this stuff. I think if you can try and read production, you will generally have a better advantage. So in David's spot, I would predict the swap is next. Hold on to the idol for that.
I'm going to say this in 2 very succinct parts. If you are playing Survivor,
You, the listener,
you Ryan, you Josh, me Derek, hold on to your idol because we're not making the same mistakes that David has made to this point.
ideally.
I love this certain brand of Survivor of like very intentional, reckless abandon that David is playing with since kind of hitting rock bottom on day 1. I'm going to swing for a home run even though I'm down by 19 and there's nobody on base. We got to start by scoring 1 point.
Hey, all you need is 19 home runs.
And it starts with the first swing. So, don't do this. But this works so well for David's game. He has no idea that it's going to work this well. But it saves his game in the pre-merge completely that this happens.
And maybe that's the important thing is I am speaking about this and saying whether or not it's the right move for him to do this in the context of it being David. I do think that is important where if you are in a, depending on your situation and your personality and how you're playing the game, that really matters when it comes to this. I would probably agree with you most of the time, save the idol.
I agree. It does depend on the person, the place, and the time. That said, David should still not play the idol here. Even with David and everything going on here, he should still not play it. It's going to work out. That is because he is lucky, not because he is good.
Hey, sometimes you got to be lucky.
Yes, agreed. Things can work out.
He. You know what? In the age-old question, is it better to be lucky than good? He is riding and dying with better to be lucky today.
Look, you can do the smartest thing in the world and lose, and you can do the dumbest thing in the world and win. That's 100% possibility. I like odds. I like playing the odds. I like playing the safe way. To win, that's play the odds. Tribal Council David is going to play his idol on Jessica, which is hilarious. She is shocked.
Floored.
And then even more floored, 5 votes for Jessica. It's so good. Mwah. Weirdly, Ken joined Sunday, Brett, Chris, and Lucy to vote for Jessica. So I wonder if David decided to spur of the moment.
Mm-hmm. That's 100% what that tells me, is that he didn't tell anyone that he was doing this.
He probably hadn't even decided until he got to Tribal. And then David and Cece are the 2 who vote for Lucy. So 2 votes for Lucy, and then 1 vote for Cece from Jessica. So Lucy goes home on 2 votes, which is wild. Again, we kind of beat this to death. I think this is the wrong move for David. I think let Jessica go, hold on to the idol, predict a swap is next, save yourself if need be. Let Jessica go.
I think this is the right move for David, but only for David. Don't do this. Unless you are David, don't do this.
Yeah, in this situation with this person, I'm going to say yes. I also think that it would be interesting if you are trying to predict the game, predict that a swap might be coming. David has already been to the summit. So hopefully you have this idol burned. You made that move. You hopefully secured Jessica as a future alliance member if there's a swap. So just 1 more number can make a really big difference. But also you might have people that you can work with because you've already made those connections on the other side going forward. So there's some semblance of ammo coming, maybe.
You might. I'd still rather have the idol. David right, more like David wrong. Derek, who is your best player of the episode?
Well, if it's not obvious, I'm giving it to David because even in the context of this tribe, you've now taken a 4-3 advantage because there's no way Jessica's going to try and work with Brett and Chris for as long as this version of the tribe is around. So you got a 4-3 advantage. You're in the majority. And if a swap comes around, you've got a decent relationship with most of your tribe, which again is all that David can hope for at this point. So really in any situation, at least he has friends.
I don't know if I would phrase it that way, but I'm
gonna
also
phrase it that way.
I'm also giving it to David. I think it's a numbers game. David is increasing his numbers each time. He only increased it by 1, but he gave himself the shot at having someone like Jessica on his side. No one owes you anything in Survivor, but that's not what this is. This isn't, I'm playing this idol, you owe me now. It's, I'm playing this idol because I'm right. Ken was right.
David right.
Yes, David was right. Ken was right. We were telling you the truth about Lucy, and we just need you to see that to prove that we were telling you the truth, and you can trust us going forward. So he can increase his number by 1 of people who that he can work with in the future. The idol, while important in a swap, and it could save you, what's that going to do for you long term? It can buy you an extra tribal council, but just working with more people going forward, I think, is so much more important.
And it bears repeating, I wanted to put this in my argument. The moment in Tribal when Jessica says to Jeff, I mean, what am I supposed to do? Just like believe them when they tell me this stuff? And Ken, right in her eyes, yes.
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 And I get it. It's hard. Like, people can lie so easily, but still, it's funny.
Regardless of my thoughts on the moves and stuff, this is such a good episode. I love the TV. My best player is Adam. He got an idol clue and then got the idol.
He's my honorable mention.
Worst player, Josh, who do you got?
I had Jessica. Like, throughout this entire thing, you know, even if it was the right move for her last episode, the recovery, she did not stick the landing. She needed to make sure that everything was good with Brett and Chris and Sonda, and like that going forward, this is a reset, and that is not what this was. She needed to do a better job of picking up the pieces after her decision from last episode.
I had David. I don't like the idol play. I think it was a waste of an idol. I think it was bad timing.
I still have a really big issue with the way that Brett and Chris handled this whole situation. Like, I understand you got flipped on, but Jessica is saying that she wants to come back and work with you guys, and that the previous vote was an anti-Paul vote. It wasn't anything on them, and I understand she could have coded it better, but they could have also decoded it better, and instead they completely acted upon and tried to flop back and vote out someone who wants to work with them. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I gave the tiebreaker to Chris for being absolutely bitter Betty after that initial tribal council. And on the wrong side of the vote, again.
Episode 5, Idol Search Party. So we had some buyer's remorse in the last episode. We're going to have it again. David immediately is like, I made the wrong move. I shouldn't have done that. Should have done that.
Yeah, but time will prove him wrong, I think.
Ken and Jessica are going to make up. And Jessica is so thankful she's going to tell Ken about her legacy advantage. No! Jessica, stop it! Don't tell anybody about this, because luckily Ken seems like a wonderful guy and is not going to use this against Jessica.
I mean, clear, he has now had 2 people tell him about advantages.
Do not do this. Tell no one. Just say, like, thank you so much. I'm with you. That's all you need to say.
Well, it's interesting that she tells Ken and not David, who played his idol for you. She
probably appreciates David, but still doesn't trust him, which is fair.
And I think Ken was the more vocal, ardent, like, no, I'm telling you the truth. David probably like, all right, we're not convincing her.
So speaking of reckless abandon, that's what the Gen X tribe is going to do with the idol hunt. It's like, we're all looking like, no, we all need it.
Respect.
David finds it. Good for David. This is, an argument in your guys' favor for playing this idol would be play it, find it the next day. Go out and get it.
Hey, the sooner that you play something, the sooner you can find another.
Yep. So that is a point in your guys' favor.
It's like Mario Kart. Use your item so you can get another.
Mario Party, use your items and your coins before somebody else does.
In basketball, why don't you just shoot 3-pointers? 3s are more than 2s. Any One Tree Hill fans out there?
Nope.
No, I've never seen it.
6 of them.
But where's the lie? David's going to get the idol, but we're going to get the tribe expansion. We're doing it again.
Yes.
And this is one of the reasons I love Millennials versus Gen X so much, is the format, the structure. We have 2 tribes of 10, and we're going to go down to 3 tribes, 2 of 5, 1 of 6. I love this format, and it's just a great mix going into a merge. And we don't overdo it like we're doing Game Changers, where there's 2 swaps. dude, yeah, that's too much. But going from 2 to 3 and then into the merge, I love that. I think that's the perfect formula.
One quick thing before we move on to this, I do want to kind of say it was CC for sure, but I think Sunday was also there. They just kind of quit searching for the idol, and when they were around David, I know they weren't babysitting him at all, but they just quit. Everyone's out searching for the idol. Keep searching. Don't just get like lazy and go back to
we're
camp.
told they just went back to camp, but they may have gone on to look somewhere else. It could be a trick of the edit.
Anyways, for the tribe format, I think this is, we have wanted at least a little more variety from Survivor here in recent seasons. Let's get back and have 2 tribes because it opens up so much more as far as game format. If you have a swap, if you have an expansion, like there's so many things that you can do with it. We just want variety.
Yep.
And this is so fun.
This is really fun. Love this format.
I know this is your favorite, but this is why we'd even be okay with trying One World again.
Yeah, let's do One World again. One World is a great idea.
It is weird having a tribe that has an extra player.
Yeah, and it's cool. And Jeff's going to explain it. So we're going to get 2 tribes of 5, and then a brand new tribe, Ikabula, which they'll have to start over with a whole new beach, whole new camp. Got to start from scratch, but they get an extra person to offset that cost. So they get a tribe of 6. I think that's cool. I think that's interesting. So I really like this. I would like to do this again. So here is the new Takali tribe in purple. Jessica and Ken are going to stay here, and they are joined by Adam, Figgy, and Taylor. Figtails stays strong.
Miraculous. This was, this was the tension.
Yep.
The tension for the swap is Figtails going to stay together?
Will our star-crossed lovers be separated?
Oh, no.
On Vanua, which was the Millennials tribe, in orange, Michelle and Zeke are going to stay here, and they're joined by Cece, Chris, and David. Interesting mix. And finally, the new green Ikabula tribe of 6. We have 4 Millennials: Hannah, Jay, Michaela, and Will. 2 Gen Xers, Brett and Sunday. So, Figgy wants to hide the showmans. Taylor does not. And he's really pissy that he has to. Oh, me.
I don't want to.
I want to make out with you in front of everybody.
You're hot. Just mouthing you're hot. Just over and over. Like, yeah, you're doing a great job hiding this, guys.
So Ken is going to try and recruit Adam. It's like,
and Adam's like, please,
save me.
You don't need to recruit me.
I can see here the 3rd wheel on a 2-wheel bike.
Yeah. Adam, he's going to tell us he's the swing vote, and good for him for like holding up. He's going to weigh his options. Adam, you go for the other one.
I think he knew immediately.
Yeah,
he's like, well, I don't want to lose as a tribe, but I think I'm fine.
Well, in Millennials, the last time that we revisited them, or the last time we visited them, Zeke and Adam were on the outside. So, while they may have made social inroads and mended bonds since then, they're still on the outs.
Yep. On Vanua, Zeke and Chris are going to bond, and there's actually a really funny story about this. So they're both from Oklahoma. Zeke is a huge Sooner football fan. Chris played for the Sooners, and they were national champions.
2000.
They actually ran into each other at casting. Zeke, I think, was sitting in the waiting room, and Chris walks down the hall wearing an Oklahoma sweater. And Zeke goes, "Boomer." And Chris responded, "Sooner," which is, I guess...
Boomer Sooner, yeah.
Boomer Sooner, that's a thing. So they knew they were from Oklahoma, or at least had some sort of Oklahoma connection before they even got down. They just happened to run into each other at casting in LA.
Huh.
So they had a little thing ahead of time, which is kind of funny. So they're going to make an alliance, the Oklahoma boys. Immunity challenge, Ikabula is going to win, and Takali gets second. So our Vanua tribe, Chris, David, Cece, Zeke, and Michelle, they're going to tribal council. And man, this tribe is so bad at this challenge. Cece, David, and Michelle, none of them can swim. Not well, anyway. They're really bad.
At one point, Zeke asked, is he throwing?
Is David throwing the challenge? No, he's
No.
just that bad.
I remember laughing at David bouncing that little buoy ball off the back of the platform. And is he throwing? It's no, you don't know him.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
just him.
him.
It's weird how my opinion of people and just season and Survivor gameplay changed from watching this live because, I still wasn't super experienced with Survivor at this point. And I remember being so annoyed and not liking David when I was watching this season live. Whereas I'm not going to say that I love David second time around, but I can find a little bit more entertainment and have a better time and just see where he's come from and everything now 9 years later.
I enjoy some good buffoonery, intentional or otherwise. So Cece wants to get rid of Michelle, keep Gen X strong, take out a millennial, and they have gotten closer to Zeke than Michelle. David's on board, makes sense to him. Chris is absolutely not. I'm not going. I don't trust David. I don't trust Cece. I'm mixing it up. So Chris wants to get Cece out because she's terrible in challenges. So Chris goes to David and is like, "Hey, let's let bygones be bygones. Let's work together. Let's get Zeke and Michelle on board. Let's take out Cece because she just sucks at challenges. Like, come on." And it's going to work. David is hesitant to do the old idol switcheroo again. He's like, I want some people to trust me at some point.
Yeah, and this is interesting because, and I think Chris actually had mentioned it to Zeke in their initial conversation, like, hey, everything isn't as it seems. Like, I'm open to making a move. And this was before I think they even lost the immunity challenge. So Chris has been ready to go since the swap actually happened. It's interesting from David. You know, you made this move to build an alliance member in Jessica, and you have Cece as an alliance member, and he's pretty quick to like be able to turn on that now.
And I've got thoughts. So for me, this is a freebie for David. Like, if you can buy this, and we also see that David and Zeke are vibing pretty hard, so I'm guessing that he's going to go and vet this with Zeke, right? But Chris coming to you and saying, let's let bygones be bygones, and then seeing that Chris and Zeke are also bonding really well. Okay, Cece, yeah, she was in my alliance when I like needed her, but she is on an island without me, Ken, and Jessica. This is a chance for me to have, like Ryan said, and David said, more than one or two people to trust me. But he has an idol, so he doesn't really need to like fully commit himself. So it's kind of a freebie for David, assuming that he vets this out with Zeke, and I'm going to assume that he does.
Michelle is told about this plan, and she is skeptical. She wants to try and change things up, take control of the game herself. She talks to Cece, tries to get her to turn on David. It goes literally nowhere, and Cece immediately rats her out.
Doing too much. You are at a disadvantage number-wise.
Yep.
And you are in a fortunate enough position to where someone in the majority is willing to turn on their own alliance. Doesn't always happen in these situations. Yes, it happens actually fairly frequently in swaps, but not always. So take the win.
Yeah, talk to the people who you're going to vote with allegedly one-on-one and like get a gauge. And maybe she did, and her gut is just bad, and she had a bad read, which is possible. Get a better gut is what I would say.
I think
good.
I think it's a control thing because she's been in control in a majority alliance the entire game. It also, I think, goes back to that first tribal council where she needed to have, Hannah on her side and convince her, and, she's making like these moves. Like, great, whatever. I think it's just a control thing.
That is what I suspect as well. I would really be curious to see Michelle play again, and just because I think there's interesting layers there. What kind of player? I want to see more data points on Michelle.
Yep.
Gameplay style, I guess.
And it goes without saying, because you guys said it, Michelle could have very well played herself right out of this game.
Yep.
Because Chris could be like, you know what, I don't really feel like dealing with this millennial buffoonery anymore. At least Cece's a known quantity. Just vote out Michelle. This is what happened to John Lovett.
Yep.
You go campaigning for somebody else when you're not the target, everyone's going to start wondering, why? Why are you campaigning for Andy so hard, dude? This is kind of weird.
So we're going to go to Tribal Council. 4 votes for CC, 1 for Michelle. I think it's a fine move. I would have been fine if Michelle had been the target. Or even if somehow they had turned on David, if maybe like Chris had gotten the Millennials on board to go after David because he doesn't trust him. I'd be fine with any of them, honestly. I'd be fine if David played his idol on CC. I'm fine that he wants to save his reputation. Wait for it.
What?
Wait for it. I have a finale here. He wants to save his reputation. I have one question. David and CC have been in alliance this whole time, but we don't really ever see them interacting very much. I don't know how close they actually are. It's kind of weird.
Convenience.
It's convenient. So I don't know how David feels really strongly about her. Finally, I guess my point is I want to just go back and trust the players here, and then they are going to work with who they are closest to in this situation. So this is kind of a weird mix of people with a lot of different motivations. So basically my point is I'm going to trust the players, and if they had gone different ways, I think it makes enough sense for me at this point. So I'm totally fine with this. I'm trusting them.
Why are you okay with David playing his idol here?
Because if he does play his idol here and saves CC and knocks out whoever, that does give him control in this tribe, in a very narrow tribe. Because the one concern I have, I guess it wouldn't matter so much because he still has his idol. Let's say he lets CC go. Who goes next from this tribe is my question.
I think Michelle goes next.
Maybe. And then in that's the case, then okay, totally fine. But what if David's the next target? I think that's super possible.
I'm not saying that David knows this, but Zeke and Michelle aren't close.
Correct.
if they know that, or like Zeke maybe has already said it, that like, hey, like I'm not close to Michelle, like if necessary, you know, before all the stuff with Chris happened, like if necessary, I'm going to cut her so that it's not me. So if Cece goes, Michelle logically should be the next one to go because just more people to be able to work with.
Which it certainly could be the case. But the difference between this and then the last episode is, again, you know, I'm taking a step back and trying to look at production. When is the swap going to happen? When is the merge going to happen? I think episode 4, it's very, to me, it's pretty obvious we're swapping next. Don't play the idol here. We just swapped. This is episode 1 of the swap. How many episodes are we going to be here? How many of these tribal councils are we going to lose? Are we going to lose 3 or 4 in a row? If that's the case, it's kind of Matt Singh rules apply. You want to be one of the top 2. Maybe David and Cece are the top 2 in that case.
I think that's all the reason to not play the idol, because you have a pretty for sure. I mean, not pretty for sure. You know that CC's going. If you're going to be going to maybe 3 tribal councils here after a swap, you're not saving CC more than once. CC's going to be going to the next tribal, probably, because you still have, you know, enough people working against you. So then save that idol for when there are only 3 people left on the tribe, and you can be one of those 2 in the Matt Singh, even though it's not intentional. Like, it's not because you're the tightest duo. It's because you have the advantage.
If David plays his idol on CC and knocks out, let's say, Michelle. Now it's a tribe of 4 or 2-2. Who's the tightest duo? You know, at least you can force a tie at that point, and you're not guaranteed next. I'm just saying David needs to consider his options for what is his best route through the swap bait, because we just started this. So that's why I'm okay with it here, not in the previous episode. That's the difference for me.
I don't just disagree. I very strongly disagree.
Wow, I get to play the Josh role here. This is a rare sighting. This is Josh Derrick. Josh's big bone to pick with you is about David potentially playing his idol here. David should absolutely not play his idol here so long as he is vetted with Zeke that right. CC is the target. That is my one amendment.
And one thing is, like, I am not, like, trying to say that Ryan is saying that he should play the idol.
Yes.
Like, this was just a theoretical, like, if David had brought this up, would you be okay with it? And Ryan did say that he was okay with it.
Yes,
so.
and that is only to which extent that I'm addressing this as well. Like Ryan saying, this is what I'm okay with David doing here because David has an idol. So ultimately, it's David's choice about what happens on this tribe. The choice he made, I think, was the exact correct one. Chris is flipping either way. Do you want to piss him off further and piss off whichever on the Millennials tribe, even though you don't really know their vibe yet, and keep kind of a nothing in CC on your side? Or do you want to try and build some bonds, repair some bridges, and still have an idol in your pocket? He kind of has his cake and eats it too. The next one, you can use the idol if you need to, and hopefully you've had a chance to build a bond. But no, he should not play his idol. But I do think you're right, though. He's right to consider his options. I think he made the right choice. And by the way, Zeke threw out Michaela's name once. I fully expect that Zeke was honest with David and Chris. Like, hey, Michelle and I, we're not all that close either. Like, I'm willing to work with her now, but maybe we'll cut her later.
And there's some, like, if you read between the lines, elements there. Michelle is a Christian missionary.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Zeke is very gay.
Mm-hmm.
My best player is Chris, because he bonded with Zeke really hard. He made nice with David. He took out CC. Great episode for Chris, I thought.
I took the other side of that duo, and I said Zeke for bonding with Chris. On paper, a millennial should be going home. But he exploited the crack. He made Chris feel safe enough, used the Boomer Sooner connection, and was able to also build some trust with David. So I think Zeke built the most here and had the most to lose being in a minority situation with the most uncertainty.
I originally said David, but I'm gonna switch to Zeke here. I had said David just because, you know, he's still making like new connections, but so are Zeke and Chris. I'm not really sure why I had originally put in David, and
that's why we talk about it.
Yeah, and I'm going Zeke over Chris just because he, like, there was a connection that was made between Zeke and David. Like, it wasn't touched on as much as him and Chris, but just because Zeke's doing that with multiple people versus Chris just having the one with Zeke, also great, but just 2 is more than 1.
I think it's fair. I'm not gonna argue with you guys at all. Derek, who do you get for worst player?
Yeah, so I want to just be honest. I considered Chris for this reward or this demerit because he was very quick to be like, yeah, I want them gone. Again, the only reason that Jessica survived last time around was because, you know, something like an idol got played. Why is he gunning for CC and not gunning for David at this point? It's kind of a weird direction for him to choose if he's going to choose to go a direction. unless they suspect that David found the idol again. But like, why wouldn't Cece have found it as well? I don't know.
I think Chris just likes David as a person. I think that's what it is.
And that might be the case. It confuses me because Cece's not the one throwing wrenches into Chris's game. So if you're gonna betray the Gen X tribe, why wouldn't you go for David? Ultimately, I'm landing on Michelle, though, because I don't like how she almost John Lovetted herself right out of the game. She's showing that she's not good at playing from the bottom on paper, and she's not good at exploiting an opportunity that was presenting itself right to her. She wanted to try and do too much. Like, I'm going to flip on the flipper. No, you got swapped into a minority position. Take the cake. Just take it. It's fine. It's okay.
It's Michelle. Yeah. Take the win. You don't need to overplay the pre-merge.
I went a different route, which seems to be the theme here in this episode. It's you two versus me this time around, which is interesting.
Wow, it's almost like 2 is more than 1.
It's really interesting. My worst is Taylor.
I mean, okay. I gave my worst to Taylor a long time ago when he decided to play the world's dumbest game, and now I'm saving this for like players who made bad moves and not Taylor, who's not a player.
Okay, well, I guess I haven't given mine to Taylor yet, so
here
we go.
Here you go.
Here we go.
He didn't want to hide the show, man. It's like, come on.
He's committing.
He's committing to the bit. All right, episode 6, The Truth Works Well. Jay and Will are going to go idol hunting. Jay finds it, and Michaela walks up on them finding it. What you got there?
What do you got there?
And they're a little sus about it.
They're real sus about it. So, yeah, if I'm Michaela, I'm like, I don't trust Jay and Will.
Well, it doesn't even have to be that way either because they are in an alliance together. This isn't, hey, we have this secret alliance and Michaela's just tagging along. Like, they've been working actually together. So it could just be, hey, I found this, and like we literally just found this as we were walking here. Look at it. It's awesome. Like, bring her into it. Don't have it be like a, hey, hand in the cookie jar moment. It doesn't need to be that way.
It doesn't. Reward challenge. Figgy is very happy to see Michelle has survived, and Jeff calls her out on it, and she's like, I really like Michelle, and I'm just really happy she's still here. Oh, and I'm glad Zeke's here too. Oof.
Coconut chop.
Yep, unintentional coconut chop. Unforced coconut chop.
I don't even know if I would call it a coconut chop because they've already not voted together. Like, it's not like Zeke was in your alliance.
Hey, it's just nice to know that nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Or horrible to know.
All put out there. Really bad on Figgy's part. I feel bad for Michelle here. Like, ooh, that sucks. You just got boned by your own ally. And it wasn't a Figgy and Taylor situation.
Oh, boy.
So reward challenge, middle of the reward challenge, Hannah is sitting out and she has a panic attack. So medical's got to get called in to help her for someone who wasn't even competing, which is kind of funny. Like, panic attacks suck. I've had them before. They're horrible, and I do feel bad for Hannah. But when you put it in those terms, it's a little funny.
And the way that Dr. Joe put it, like, it's just like, hey, walk me through what's happening. It's like, well, she was watching the challenge and got a little excited.
She got a little overexcited.
Yep.
It's like, okay. But we do learn that like Hannah has had like these before, so it's not like this is a brand new situation just because she's on the island. It's like she knew that this was a possibility going into the game.
You have an anxiety disorder, and your brain tells you to freak out, even if there's nothing to freak out about. It's just your body betraying you.
Yeah. And there's a very high likelihood that you're not going to be able to control that once it happens.
Whenever, and not your fault. So it's. The only reason it's funny is just because if you just put it in those terms.
The fact that she's on the bench.
I am very sympathetic to Hannah on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor convinces Figgy to finally come clean to Jessica and Ken about the showmance. And so Jessica and Figgy talk. Figgy's like, yeah, I got to tell you, Taylor and I, we're kind of together. And Jessica's like, you think?
What? No way. I didn't see this coming.
So Ken comes over, and same thing. Figgy tells him, and he's like, "What? That's crazy! I had no idea, especially with all the hand holding and the cuddling."
Like I've been around the block, because I believe, like I'm like, oh wow, he's actually like surprised by this, and it's like, oh no, nope. Now I'm catching the sarcasm. Okay,
you ain't slick. Oh, it's so good.
Subtlety, not their strong suit.
Immunity challenge. Ikebulu wins. Vanua gets second. So Takali is going to tribal council. Is this going to be the end of the showmance? Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Jessica and Figgy really blow it. They had a huge lead, and they just blow it at the end. After the challenge ends, Michaela, well, I guess during it, she's helping Michelle and Zeke. She's giving them advice on how to. It's one of those tables where you have to navigate a ball to the end of like a table maze.
You got to work together.
Yep. And so Jeff asked Michaela about it afterwards. She's like, I wanted to give the tribe with the millennial advantage. I wanted to send them to tribal council because 3 millennials, 2 Gen X. If you can't figure that one out, you deserve to go home.
I love this. And by the way, this is the quote where I'm like, I don't care where Michaela finishes. Bring her back, because this is the kind of healthy, unfiltered, competitive spirit that I think we need a slice of on every season.
Yeah, Michaela's saying the stuff that I say on this podcast, but would never dare to say on the island.
Well, and that's the thing is she right?
Yes.
If the other tribe goes to tribal council, it could be a tie. You never know what's going to end up happening. It could be someone in your alliance that goes home. In this other scenario on this other tribe, they have the advantage, and maybe she can, use a little foresight here and see, Adam wasn't necessarily aligned with them, so he could flip and one of your alliance members goes home. I'm not sure if she looked that far ahead.
That's what she wanted, though.
See,
maybe.
And that's why we have to wait, because this particular interaction isn't just a one-off.
No, we come back to this.
This is great as a one-off, but we're going to get a payoff.
Yep. So basically what I know here was Michaela has plausible deniability about this sentence because she can mean it, or she could say the opposite if maybe Adam flips and sends Figgy home. Oh, that's what I wanted all along, because Figgy should have gone home a long time ago. So, probably shouldn't have said it. She does have plausible deniability.
It bears remembering at this point that on a 39-day season of Survivor where we haven't been on the Millennial Tribe in a while, Figgy and Michaela hated each other not because of their gameplay. It was their personalities that they hated.
Strictly personal.
Which, if that person makes it to the jury, that might be hard to get that person's vote.
It's hard to get that person's vote, and maybe you used each other to not go home that one time, but that alliance that the Millennials cobbled together on day 5 or 6 or whatever it was, very likely could have changed at this point if there had been enough shift in power dynamic and numbers. And in the split situation, Michaela doesn't need to be loyal to anybody.
So, are you saying that her helping the other tribe is a good move?
Not necessarily, but I will say she has plausible deniability. She has an out at the very least. So again, I wouldn't do this probably, but it's not the worst move.
I wouldn't do it, but you know what? I'm glad it happened. That's all I'll say. If you feel like you can get away with it, sure. Because like Ryan said, plausible deniability is there. Basically, this could be a Team Millennial move, or it could just be a
get rid of Figgy move.
Get rid of Figgy move.
So Figgy and Taylor want Ken out, and we're never told why they want Ken out over Jessica. I found that interesting, and that we were never told why. Ken and Jessica want Figgy out, so Adam is the swing vote, obviously. Ken and Jessica both work Adam really hard, and Ken's like, I will be loyal to you. I will not vote you out ever. It's exactly what you want to hear.
It's also a really easy thing to say.
Yep.
And they've only been together a few days, so you don't know that Ken is a guy who you can actually trust to say that.
It turns out it's true. Ken is that kind of guy. Ken is a big loyalty, honesty, integrity kind of guy. So he does mean what he says.
And he radiates a certain level of that authenticity.
Yep.
Joe Hunter from 48 is another example. You could even go back to the Survivor Marquesas and say the General. He's just one of those dudes that when he says he's going to do it, you can hopefully get a decent read.
Take that to the bank.
You can take it to the bank. And you know what? If one of those people betrays you or betrays me when I'm on Survivor, I'd be like, you know what? Props.
I deserved that.
I deserved that.
Well, and here's the thing. He could say whatever. There's still a correct move for Adam. It doesn't matter how little you can trust Ken.
Unless Ken is saying, I will vote you out the first chance I get.
Okay,
it's time to flip. And he does. Tribal Council, 3 votes for Figgy, 2 votes for Ken, 100% the right move.
100%.
Slam dunk.
Adam is not in Figgy's alliance. Time to jump ship and try and find a new place to call home with Ken and Jessica.
Yep.
And if you can make some alliance members along the way, awesome.
Awesome. You're going to piss off Taylor? Oh, well.
Oops.
Vote him out next.
You got the numbers.
And now for the second vote. This, Jeff, again, big fan of our podcast. This is why the swap from 2 to 3 works really well. Because now a Gen Xer has gone home when on paper it should have been a Millennial. And now a Millennial has gone home when on paper it should have been a Gen Xer. You've got these big groups of people that have all worked with each other, and then you divide them up into smaller groups. What's going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah, if you go from 3 to 2, which, still great. I love a good swap, but those lines have been drawn so hard that, people might not be as incentivized because there might not be, those layers built into a 10-person tribe.
Yeah, you've created 3 voting blocks that are ending up on that swap from 3 to 2, whereas in this case, it's like, you've got a bunch of fractures that are getting divided out. How is this continental divide going to break?
It's interesting.
What are the fault
Stay
lines?
tuned to find out.
Josh, who do you have for best player?
I had Adam. I mean, it's a layup, and it's a very obvious move for him to make. But he had to make that decision and recognize that it was the best move for his game.
I am going to Ken instead because Adam, he made the right move, 100% layup. He makes an enemy in Taylor, unavoidable in the game. Ken doesn't. Ken's hands are clean. He and Jessica said what they needed to say to get Adam on their side. Again, easy, but they did what they needed to do. The tiebreaker for me between Ken and Jessica is Jessica blew the immunity challenge. Ken did not. So therefore, Ken.
I had Ken as well. And part of this is just he radiates that authenticity I was talking about. This is I only take so many notes because I know that Ryan is kind of the guy who spearheads our narration on the podcast. But I did take a note that the showmance came up at Tribal Council tonight. And Jeff brings up the fact that he is an ordained minister.
Yep.
And he could marry them right on the spot.
Cringe.
And Figgy says...
No, I love it.
It's great, but it's cringe.
And Figgy says, let's do it. And then Taylor just kind of doesn't give her anything.
He's like, what?
And then Jeff is like, Ken, and this is where Taylor should say, you should say that you are in support of her and that you're going to validate her feelings and it will make her feel secure and it will help to give this thing legs. And I was like, that's a guy who just like understands emotions and feelings and relationship dynamics. And that's part of the authenticity that he can radiate when trying to get something that on paper should be happening. A Gen Xer going home, he was the target, to Figgy or Taylor going home instead. So I'm going to give the credit to the on paper disadvantage and to the person who radiates that authenticity. I gave it to Ken.
Sure. For worst, I'm going to give mine to Taylor. Got Figgy to come clean about the showmance. I know everyone knew. They didn't know that, and he was the one who convinced her to make a bad move. I can't give it to Figgy because she went home here. He loses his closest ally. Taylor is my pick.
Taylor is the pick. Everything you said, plus one other thing, literally at Tribal Council, he said that if Adam doesn't do what we say he should do, we're going to vote his ass out.
How?
Like, Taylor, you just keep choosing the worst possible ways to play this game, socially anyway, and strategically.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's Taylor with a bullet.
Just because it's easy doesn't mean it's wrong,
No,
Josh.
well, because, okay, so I originally had Michaela because I did not like her moves at the immunity challenge. You could say that it works out in her favor and that it even might have been a good gameplay move. There's an argument for that, or that she has plausible deniability. I just don't like someone being the focus of attention in whatever way that might be. Either because you're so bad at something, or you're helping someone else out, or you're saying, like Figgy did at the immune challenge, hey, I really like Michelle, and so I was glad to see her. Any sort of publicity that makes you stand out, I really do not like. So that's why I originally gave it to Michaela. Also, Taylor's no longer in a showman's. So, like, he is free of those shackles going forward. Is he a good enough player to do something with it? Time will tell.
Yep.
Which also means that they targeted the right person, because I think Figgy would be somebody who is capable without the shackle of Taylor.
Hey, showmance in the pre-merge, that was fun. Let's play this game in the post-merge.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, Figgy could have done that. Taylor, not so much. So I think the right choice was made here.
So, like, as far as, like, worst player, that's why it's like, man, like, I get it. I do really get it for giving it to Taylor, but that's why I was leaning towards Michaela. I'm going to give it to Taylor. I'm going to switch it to Taylor. Not because you guys convinced me.
We did it.
Yeah, we did it.
Because I do think it's a toss-up. I think it's a toss-up, and the tiebreaker is going to go to the fact that I have not given it to Taylor yet in the pre-merge.
He deserves it.
We all have to. That's the rule.
He deserves it once in the pre-merge.
I've given it to him twice now, but you know what? At least once.
I gave it to him twice, but he did something new this time. He threatened somebody, like, don't do what I want or you're going to vote you out. You keep finding dumb ways to play, man.
Episode 7, I Will Destroy You, final episode of the pre-merge, and probably the best episode of the pre-merge. This is amazing. Adam and Taylor talk, and Taylor plays it pretty cool, but he's pissed.
I will destroy you.
Vengeance will be his. But yeah, he knows to his credit, he plays it really cool.
Yep.
And I really like how Adam talks to Taylor. Taylor's like, you screwed me. Adam's like, absolutely. I boned you so hard.
I know you didn't want me to be boning you.
Yeah, but I did. I screwed you over. That's one thing I really like about Adam is he's straightforward, man.
I like how he can lean into it. It's almost the first example of overt meta gameplay getting woven into the edit. Like
Game body.
Like, I can see exactly why you would think this, because from a gameplay perspective, it's 100% true. Also, you really liked her, so from an emotional standpoint, that sucks too. You have every reason to hate me.
If you want, we can throw the challenge and vote you out so you can go to Ponderosa.
You know, in debate, this is the strategy. It's acknowledgement. Like, you have all of these arguments against me. This is why I think you shouldn't necessarily act on these things, but I'm going to acknowledge that everything that you're saying has validity, and we just are differing in our value sets.
It's a debate move I really like,
Yes.
actually. Is Adam super effective at it? I think he's decent. I just don't think Taylor can be won over.
I would say I don't think there was a winning argument for him.
No, there was no changing Taylor's mind.
Sometimes you can't win. So David wants to make an alliance with Zeke and tells him about the idol. David, why? Stop it.
Hey, it's worked out for him so far.
This is Zeke is not Ken.
I'm not going to defend this one, by the way.
Absolutely bad. Zeke does want it does work. It does work. Zeke's like, oh, I trust David now. Cool. Yeah, let's work together. I like David. Let's do it.
I'm gonna keep him around for now.
For now, big for now.
Big for now.
This is a bad move. I think David could pull Zeke in without the idol play.
I think you already have.
Yep.
This seemed unnecessary.
To me, this is insurance that they aren't going to try and force anything to rocks. Like, hey, Zeke, I trust you more than Michelle because I have an idol, and I'm going to make sure that what we want to happen happens next time.
Yeah. Reward challenge. Michaela reveals she's actually like, no, I said what I was supposed to say last time, but I figure you should have been gone a long time ago.
Michaela, do you feel like you have egg on your face? You said that if a millennial goes home, that they deserve it. Do you still feel that way? It was long past due for Figgy to go home. Sometimes you say what you need to say in the moment, but it was time for her to leave.
Which, I mean, to be fair, they only went to tribal once.
Yep.
Like, Mari goes home. Figgy very well could have been the next one out. They didn't go to tribal.
Yep. Yeah, good stuff. Taylor tries to warn Jessica and Ken not to trust Adam, and he swears allegiance to them. So Taylor's, to his credit, he's played horribly for 6 episodes. He's doing pretty good this one so far.
I mean, he's doing the absolute bare minimum, but nobody believes him. Like, we get to cut to Jessica and Ken not really buying what he's selling. They're just like, we'll take it into consideration.
Maybe. It's a maybe.
He's not convincing us. It's just like,
it's good to see.
We have to think about this.
We won't shut him down. So, Taylor's doing what he needs to do and probably the best he can do.
Yes. Well, I mean, that second part, undoubtedly.
Yes. Hannah and Jay are both very suspicious of Brett. He says he's a funeral director. They both think he's a cop. Hannah's originally from Boston, and she's like, he's like every cop I've ever met. And Jay's got the best line. He's like, take away the accent. Brett's just a guy who would be chasing me down the beach for lighting a bonfire. I've run away from guys like Brett so many times.
Spoken like a man with experience. I love Jay.
He's so great. Hilarious. So they don't trust Brett at all. Now, the backstory, Brett was not a funeral director. He did work at a funeral home for a while.
He took the Ryan Stacy recommendation. Yep. It's a job that you did once.
He did, but I don't think he did a great job of convincing. Like, they were all very generic answers. Yep. Like, funeral director stuff.
Yeah.
What? What'd you do? I worked with dead bodies. What do you want from me, huh?
Families and death and coffins and
yeah,
and such.
It's definitely hard, It's really hard.
Yeah.
You have to try and comfort them, but you have to try and, make the day something special. How do you balance that line?
Sounds like something literally anyone could say.
Yeah, the problem is Brett sounds and acts just like a cop from Boston would.
To me, it's when they say that he walks like a cop because there is a cop walk. I'm not trying to stereotype.
Well, I think it's honestly, A, you have to project confidence. B, you have that giant heavy utility belt full of crap. There is a walk. There's a gate to it.
Yeah.
I used to work security, and it was similar because you had these weapons on you sometimes, and so there is a walk, and you're supposed to project confidence. You're supposed to. A heavy emphasis on supposed to make people feel safe. You're supposed to be an image of like, hey, we're superhero kind of energy. Like, oh, we got you, ma'am. We'll protect you. What actually is presented is up for debate.
And maybe a case-by-case scenario.
Maybe on a case-by-case scenario.
But point being, they don't trust him. And this is one of those, again, funny times where people are calling their shot. Like Sarah Lucina, like, Tony's a cop.
He's a cop.
Like, Boston cops, they just can't hide. You can spot a Boston cop from 100 miles away.
At the immunity challenge, Takali wins, Vanua gets second. Ikabula is going to Tribal Council. And this is so fun, just because we have 3 new tribes, and all 3 of them are going to Tribal Council once. It's just like...
Let's test these lines.
I wonder
each time.
I wonder what each of these tribes are going to do. Hey, we get to know. It's not just hypothetical.
It's perfect.
You're not going to go into the merge and be like, "Wow, I wonder what would have happened."
It's good. Another reason I love this season, and that's production didn't cause that. It's just something that happened.
It's luck.
It's luck. Millennials, they're like, okay, we'll split the votes between Brett and Sunday. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. It sucks. We like both of them. But we'll take out Brett on the revote because we don't trust him as much as Sunday. Then Michaela, after this initial conversation of what we're going to do, Michaela is going to come up with an even more elaborate strategy. She's come up with this whole game plan, X's and O's football style, with using shells. And basically how it explains is how us 4 get to the end, and by numbers alone, how they can get to the end with no problem. And it really doesn't matter what they do as long as they stick together. And it's just this really elaborate plan, a lot of explanation, a lot of seashells, a lot of thought put into this. A lot.
The way that you're teeing this up is going to make the next part of this conversation really funny.
And I do enjoy it. It's great. It tells me Michaela is a really smart player, and I really like the way she's thinking about the game. Unfortunately, it's something you gotta keep to yourself. If you start drawing up like complicated formulas and how we're gonna do this, everybody's like, "Oh, you're a threat." Oh, so Jay and Will are like, "Oh my God, Michaela's smart. We gotta take her out." No, guys, don't. You don't need to. She's explaining how you 4 are gonna get to the end together.
And that's where, like, the way that you're teeing this up, like, look at Michaela's doing this with a lot of thought, and then cut to Jay being like, that's a lot of shells, and I don't know if it's good or bad to be a shell, and I don't know if Michelle's shell is bigger than my shell.
No, he's not that bad.
No, it was definitely not that bad. He just got spooked.
Yeah,
it's just like she's doing a lot
there's
of math.
There's a threat here. He's not thinking, final 4 here with this person because if she gets there, maybe she would beat me. It's like, wow, that sounds like a problem for, when you're in the finale.
Yeah, getting towards the end game. Jay, I think, has a realization that, I might not be the smartest person in the room. Or at the very least, there's somebody on my level.
He's smart.
He's played great so far. Mm-hmm. He's going to tank it a bit in this episode, which is really too bad. Because Jay and Will decide to flip on Michaela just because they're like, oh, she's smart. She's also working with you. We're about to merge.
Well, and there was a really interesting thing that came up when they were having a conversation, Jay and Will, where they're debating whether or not they want to do this. And it's like, 1, she's really smart. She's a threat. You can take her out now, go into the merge, kind of fresh slate, which that's an argument. The other side that I don't think gets talked about enough is with people where they're like, Michaela doesn't have anyone else. We are her only options as far as people that she can trust in an alliance. So she has no incentive to betray us, right, essentially. That is a very strong argument to keep her around. I don't care how smart or strategic she is, because you could always cut her later. But going forward, after the merge, that is going to be so important to have that person, along with a bunch of other people that you need, to just keep moving forward. And that should have been the end of the conversation. It's like, oh, she doesn't have anyone else except for us. Sounds like someone we need to keep around.
And if you prop her up as a threat in your alliance, if someone idles someone in your alliance out, Michaela's gone. There's no reason to vote out Michaela here.
Also, she's a big threat in challenges, so meat shield again on that side.
The only other part is Michaela knows about Jay's idol, but if you keep her in your pocket, it's not a problem so much. And you can only just play the idol if you need to.
Yeah, back to she doesn't really have anyone else that she can work with right now. Yes, that can change, but she has no incentive to tell other people about the idol.
The other part of it is they're gonna flip on Michaela, and they're not gonna tell Hannah, which is just gonna drive a wedge between them there. So they're gonna jump over to the Gen X side. They have bonds with other people. They're gonna cut one of their own. They're gonna betray another one of their own to flip to a less secure group with one they already don't trust. They like Brett, they just don't trust him. So it's gonna be 4 votes for Michaela, 2 votes for Brett, and the freak out. What? Did you do this?
Yeah.
Michaela turns back to Jay. Did you do this? Yeah, I did it.
I did that.
Oh, it's cold.
Stone cold face too.
Yeah, this is so great. I love Jay and I love Michaela for this. This is just this is Survivor, baby.
These are the moments that production wishes they could manufacture.
Yep.
But you can't.
You can't.
You just need to cast a Jay and a Michaela and give them some seashells.
give him some bad decision making.
This may be #1 top 10 anime betrayal reaction at a tribal council ever in Survivor.
Yeah, well, especially like Michaela has her. I think she had her hair down, so when she flipped her head around, her like hair went around, and like just like. Because Jay's just directly behind her, and this just big reaction, just because, of course it's a big reaction. Why would someone do that?
It's a stupid big betrayal. And then we had the camera behind the castaways, and so we could see Michaela's face from that angle too, and it's really good. Just raw emotion. It's great. Like, you can't write this stuff.
Just hatred and surprise in a look.
Betrayal, deep betrayal, and it's so good. I feel bad for Michaela, obviously, but man, oh man, this is amazing television. Terrible move. Bad move. Jane Will caught a case of big move-itis.
Yep. You can't win the game in the pre-merge.
Should have been Brett. 100% should have been Brett.
It should have been a Gen Xer. You can make the argument for Brett because there was a stronger argument with him maybe being dishonest about his occupation. I agree this was the wrong move. The only good, and you mentioned it as kind of a throwaway comment, is Michaela stumbled across Will and Jay finding the idol, and now that X Factor is out. But I think you had Michaela wanting and willing to work with you for a long time. And even if you don't have her in your Final 4 plans, you could have her in your Final 5 or Final 6 plans.
13 people left.
There's a lot more room to go, and at least she's including you in very thoughtful plans. Like, if this isn't her plan, man, that's a lot of work for a fake plan.
I would love to have someone show me a seashell plan, seashells down by the seashore plan, and tell me how they were going to get me to the end. Like, oh, I'm not saying I'm going all the way, but thank you.
You want to have a lot of options on how to get to the end. Marianne, she wanted to make sure that no matter what, she was able to get to the end.
Keep spraddling.
Here is one option of how you can get to the end. Awesome.
Right,
it doesn't mean that you can't, have other things in the works, but maybe it gets you to the point of Final 7, and it's like, I like this Final 4 better than this Final 4. Cool. We're not there yet. Come on.
And like, I know this is Jay's move, but Will needs to recognize that this is also a bad move for him. And maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. We don't get it. We need to be trying to talk Jay out of this move.
Yes.
I almost wish we would have seen it, but this was the era of 60-minute episodes. So.
And Will's 18.
Yes.
Will seems very much along for the ride right now.
And this is what I touched on earlier, is kind of like a setup and payoff on this podcast. Will, being younger, just trying to play the middle and not make anybody angry and just go with it. His buddy Jay comes in with an idea, and I think here he just goes with it. And I think it's going to cost at least a fair portion of the Millennials a good part of the game. So he needed to be more assertive and see the game a little more clearly, I think.
Derek, who do you got for best player of the episode?
Well, I'm going to give it to Sunday just because people weren't suspicious of her motives or her occupation. And again, on paper, it should have been her or Brett going home. And they managed to flip the script by just being good, kind people. One other thing we didn't talk about was these 6 people, it seemed like they actually wanted to be a final 6.
Yeah, it had this tribe not lost, this could have been the final 6.
They all genuinely love each other. And even Michaela said, like, whoever goes home, I hope the others can work together. Now, she wanted to be in that group. She thought she was in that group. But, like, those should work together and keep going and stick to that plan. Okay, so if knowing that, good job then on Brett and Sunday for assimilating well enough to be like, hey, this group of 4 is willing to take us to the end. But then, Brett was a little suspicious with his occupation, so I gave the edge to Sunday.
I didn't pick anyone from this tribe. Good on Brett and Sunday for not getting voted out, I guess. But it was something completely, I think, irrelevant to what they did. I gave it to Zeke. He has just had a really good time after the swap, good enough to have the social benefit of having David tell him about his idol. So I know I don't do that very often, where it's more just like a culmination of a few different things there. But he seems like he has, after being on the outs with his original tribe, he seems to be in a really good spot about having options come merge.
I give mine to Sunday. No matter what happened, she was not going home. Great social game. So I have Sunday. Worst player, Josh, who do you got?
It's Jay. Don't blow up a good thing. I don't know if he just felt threatened or if there was just like other competition. He wanted to be in control. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the main motivating factor that pushed him over the edge of making this decision was. You have someone who's pointing to you and showing you how you can make it to the end, and you are in their direct plans. Yes, they could be lying, but this would be a really elaborate lie. So just get through the merge, and then if you want to, change up plans, you can later.
I consider Jay, and he's getting a strong dishonorable mention, but I'm going to give mine to Will. He went along with this. He should have stopped it. Yeah, he's 18, but, still, I'm going to hold everybody to the same standard for the most part, at least with the awards generally. The one reason I gave it to Will is because it was Jay's idol that Michaela knew about. Okay, so that you cut out somebody who knows about it. Okay, that's like a tiny positive, and nowhere near enough for this to be justified. Will has 0 positives, none whatsoever, for this to be okay. So I'm going to give mine to Will.
I mean, that's great, but Will's not the one who brought this up in the first place. So, you're treating Will and Jay the same, and then, just the fact that Jay has the idol, you're bringing them down.
They're basically the same.
So what I'm going to say is, first off, I agree with Josh that Jay is the worst player of the episode for making this move. However, Josh, I think you need to give a little more credence to Ryan's argument where, even in Survivor...
Dishonorable mention. Dishonorable mention.
Yeah, the dishonorable mention for me really comes to that second layer where in Survivor, a game where you are supposed to assimilate, that is good gameplay. Will does assimilate. It was never him going home. He still has some options moving forward. It was just a bad move that doesn't have any immediate repercussions. And Jay putting him in that situation as the initiator is worse for Jay than it is for Will just kind of going along with it, in my opinion. After this swap situation, it is more important just to try and get through and get to the merge so you have a chance at the end. So I'm glad both have representation as our worst.
I am not like Ryan, where I'm holding Jay maybe to a little bit higher of a standard.
Which is fair.
Will is playing a complacent game. I think he's just excited to be on Survivor because he's 18. Jay is playing to win the game. And because of that, he's making big moves when you might not have to.
Sure. Michaela will play again. Do we want to see it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100%. Not everybody wants pre-mergers to come back. This is no. Bring her back.
This is an easy one.
Yeah. All right. That is the pre-merge. So let's wrap this up. Winner picks. We're all still here.
Yep.
I have Zeke. If I could change it, I would not. I would keep Zeke. I like my Zeke pick right now.
Yeah, I have Hannah. Can't switch. If I could swap, I would swap to Zeke, I think. I think there's an argument to be made for Ken as well, but I'm going to swap to Zeke.
I have Brett. He's in an interesting spot. He's had a little bit of a roller coaster here. I think I would hang on to it for now, just because it's going to be really interesting when everyone comes together. Post-merge, I think he has enough connections to make something happen, to basically be in that top tier of, hey, these people could win.
All right, let's get into best and worst player of the pre-merge. I think this is a flawed bunch. I think this is going to, especially for best, I think this is going to be hard. We'll see if you guys disagree or agree with me or not. But Derek, kick us off. Who is your best player of the pre-merge?
Yeah, so for those on video, if you've seen me over here just visually racking my brain, it's because I have a name written down. And then after going through a very in-depth discussion with these guys, I'm trying to think, was my name correct? So I have been scrubbing every single player who's still left. Because again, everyone who went home, is obviously not fitting for either of these best
Final
or worst.
13 only.
I'm comfortable with where I landed, but it took a lot of thought because everybody, I think, makes one key mistake in the pre-merge. Now, those mistakes are different, but everyone makes at least one. I'm going to land on Zeke because his one mistake was something that was made basically on his their version of day one before their first tribal in throwing out Michaela's name. If that does not happen, the entire complexion of the Millennial tribe, I think, changes and Figgy goes home immediately and stronger bonds are built. It's a subtle one where you're trying to let Jay know hey, we're not trying to pick off all you guys. We're Michaela's next, but Figgy's and Taylor's a problem. So it's a minor one. I'm going to land with Zeke because he's connecting with everyone. He's got a strategic brain. He understands the mindset of the original opposing tribe and the Millennial tribe and just seems like a good all-around dude. And that counts for something, especially in a group like this. So I'm going with Zeke. I'm interested to hear where you guys go with this.
This is a tough one. Mm-hmm. Up until that last move, I think maybe Jay could have been the one.
Yeah.
But that disqualifies him.
Yeah.
Right there. The people that I was looking at was Zeke, Brett, and Chris. Sorry, all dudes, but that's just kind of how it goes sometimes. I think I'm going to go with Zeke as well, though, just because he hasn't made really anyone mad. He was on the outs of his original alliance, but not because of really anything that he did. It was just, this group got together and he wasn't on the right side. That group has now been dismantled a little bit. So I don't think he's going to really have enemies in that way. He made new alliance members. Like his one close person, Adam, is still in the game from earlier. He's been now close with Chris, knows about David's idol. He has, that social connection there. So I think he's going to have a lot of good options going forward. And he's played an adaptable game. So I think that is good enough for me.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really consider Zeke. The five I had in the conversation that I was really thinking hard about were Michelle, Adam, Chris, Ken, and Sunday. Those were my five that I was really rattling my brain through.
For what it's worth, if you don't talk about it, I want to talk about why Sunday was my honorable mention. But continue.
Yeah, just because I thought all five of these people played really well. They had a flaw. Each of them have a flaw, but I think for the most part, they were positive. I didn't like how Sunday was flopping. Ken, I don't know if he's got the full strategy thing there. Like he's all right. Ken is probably my honorable mention.
I did think about Ken. What left him out of the conversation for me is he was almost a little too honest for my liking.
Yeah. Adam was left out early on, and then Michelle, she was great, I thought, in the original tribe, but less so in the mixed tribe. Ultimately, I landed on Chris as my best because his one mistake, I thought, was he was just angry at Jessica that night and didn't want to talk to her right away. He eventually did, but, it should have been better. That is the only real flaw I have for Chris. Everything else that happened was things blowing up around him. He was standing there doing the right thing, and everything blew up around him. Not his fault. I don't hold it against him. I think he did pretty well, all things considered, with a lot of bad luck. So I have Chris as my best player. But again, everyone here is flawed.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about it, the reason I didn't give it to Brett or Chris is because when they got a little bit angry and standoffish when things didn't go their way, I weight social flaws like that, like reactions, more heavily than I do something like Zeke making the mistake of throwing out a small strategic error.
Zeke did not want to talk to Hannah.
I didn't care much about that.
If you're going to hold it against Chris, you have to hold it against Zeke.
The other part was Brett and Chris got left out of the vote against Paul because of their social connections or lack thereof with Jessica and Sunday and Lucy.
Zeke and Adam got left out of the Mari vote.
Because of the mistake I already said that Zeke made. These are my reasons, and like you said, they are all flawed. I'm not going to fight you on Chris is your best too badly. I'm just saying this is what I weighted more for mine. So,
how about worst player of the pre-merge? Josh, who do you got? This should not take long.
Man, we have so many options.
I mean, everybody's flawed.
Everybody's flawed. This has been a very interesting development that we have here.
And it's
Taylor.
It's Taylor.
Hands down.
Perhaps one of the most inept people to ever at the game to ever make it to the merge.
I won't call him a complete zero because he's really good at challenges.
Yep.
Well, and after Figure was out, I do want to recognize that he did have the wherewithal to go out and be like, all right, I need to make this connection here. He just wasn't able to have the right priorities.
Nope. Not at all. Nope. If they had ended up together and they had happily ever after, I would have been said, you know what, probably worth it, but they didn't.
Oops.
Oopsie poopsie.
I want something better than $1 million.
This ain't no Robin Amber.
They ain't no Robin Amber.
Okay, so that is Millennials versus Gen X. Weather report.
Well, we got evacuated for a literal cyclone. That's pretty cool. Glad they didn't force him to stick it out, especially with that tree falling. Yep. I mean, that's a decision that saved lives, very likely. So
and maybe saved Survivor.
Yeah. Saved lives, saved Survivor. It's a little moment, but it's kind of like that earthquake. It's like, we're never going back to Vanuatu. So.
We're gonna stay in Fiji forever.
Well, we're gonna avoid cyclone season.
Yeah, we're gonna move it from cyclone season and stay here forever.
Yep. So that's the weather report.
Last thing we talk about, most memorable moment of the pre-merge. Josh, as our memorability consultant, what are you thinking?
I really only have two. Okay. One, Figtails. One just because it's a great name, iconic, love it. And the other one is the one we just talked about, is Jay and Michaela, the betrayal, and specifically the reaction when Michaela whips her head around. Is it you?
Yeah.
Oh, she also smacks a tree on her way out after Jeff snuffs her toe.
Yeah.
Her torch. She smacks a tree or a branch or something. No, that's mine.
Yeah, the Bradshaw vote out. Yep.
Easy.
Cool. All right, that's it. That is the pre-merge. Next up will be the post-merge. I'm very excited. Like I said, I love this season. And it just keeps on getting better.
Kind of odd. I don't remember a whole lot from the post merge. I remember enjoying it, but again, I watched this live and it was 9 years ago.
Yep.
Memorability correspondent doesn't have a good memory.
That's why it's fun. So I'm really excited, really looking forward to this one. Guys, social media.
Yeah, you can follow us on basically everything at Castaway Pod. TikTok, YouTube, Facebook is Castaway Consultants. We have a website, which is thecastawayconsultants.com.
Yeah, if you reach out on Spotify or any of these social medias with comments on the episode, can you think of a cuter couple name than Figtails? And then who was your best player of the pre-merge? I think I'm most curious because, again, everyone is flawed, and it really comes down to how you weight their mistakes, I think.
Yeah.
Also, we had a lot of disagreements in this pre-merge when it came to right moves, best players, worst players, stuff like that. So if there's any that you feel strongly about one way or the other, let us know.
Sound off.
We do have an odd number of people on this podcast, so we just have a natural tiebreaker.
Yep.
But sometimes even then we're not always correct.
Yeah, or if we have a three-way disagreement, which happens.
1-1-1.
Yep. That's always interesting. And then I wanted to thank everyone for voting on our season 50 predictions. I may not have won, but the fact that Derek got 0 votes warms my heart. 0 vote finalists.
Yeah, we did get a lot of responses about who they thought was the best, or even if it's most chaotic, that's good enough.
I greatly appreciated the responses to mine in particular.
We had some people who submitted their own cast list, so thank you for those. Those were cool to see.
Salty Derek is going to come out for a second. The only reason Josh won is because the good people decided they wanted a Survivor Legends season.
You could do that.
If you tell me to build a Survivor Legends cast, I will build a better cast than Josh. Take that to the bank.
Notably, I also left out specific people, so I followed.
You put Becky Lee in your cast, dude.
Yes, I did.
That's what 0 vote finalist Becky Lee, 0 vote finalist Derek Kubicek.
If Becky Lee has the super idol instead of you, well, Becky Lee can win that season.
Great. She's super boring. Don't bring her back.
I said it. I meant it.
0 vote finalists. Yeah, it was fun. I had a great time. That was a really fun podcast. All right, guys. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. This has been the Castaway Consultants.
Got nothing else for you.
Good night.